And we're back, folks. It's been a little while. We missed both our spooky episodes, actually, for this year and last year. But we're getting one episode in before we call it 2024. Happy Christmas, everyone. We're here to talk about two not spooky Christmas movies for once that are. How do you want to describe them? They're kind of
low wattage classics. I mean,
low wattage classics.
Less so one of them, I suppose. I think the main one that you had me watch, that you went and, in fact, you've been seeing both of these in the cinema, haven't you?
In the last week, yes.
In the last week, the one has very much become a Christmas tradition, not only there, but also here, considering it's a British film, which is interesting.
That's
lots of people my age know it and love it and watch it every year.
But neither of us, I would say,
I'd never seen it.
You'd never seen the first one, which is Love Actually. I'm
Yes.
just going to say it because then we don't have to dance around it. The other one, and it's one of those films that over the last 10 years has become a film that's in the rotation for me, if you get what that means.
Yeah.
It's just in the rotation. Every year it's one of those films I end up watching. But
this year was It's a Wonderful Life.
There you go. But it's Die Hard. Die Hard I watch about 4 times a year anyway, because it's not. I don't care about this whole.
It's not a Christmas movie, but it can be a Christmas movie.
It's just that's the thing. I don't care about that debate. It's just one of the best movies.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put it on 4 times a year at least. Anyway, I'm just going to put on Die Hard when I want to watch Die Hard, which can be true of any Christmas movie. But because of that, I've already watched it twice this year, actually. Both the fake little Christmases I've done, I have watched Die Hard, those, because people wanted to put it on. But I will watch it again anyway. My Christmas Eve tradition is RoboCop, as you know. But the other film we're going to talk about in a little bit, or whether we do it first, we'll decide in a sec, is something that has become a new... I've got no nostalgia for it. I don't really have any nostalgia for Love Actually. It actually came to me quite late. But the other one has entered the rotation in the last couple of years, and I think it is fucking brilliant.
I think it's is Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way. Arnie Down era Arnie.
I would say
Jingle
so,
All the Way.
yeah, because it's kind of before. It's funny. I kept there was a moment in the film where I conflated it and The Sixth Day.
Ooh, shit! When we'll have to look at which order these come out in. It's before Stigmata. No, wait, not Stigmata. End of Days.
Which also feel like End of Days feels like down era action Arnie, because I feel like it wasn't very successful, but it feels like it was still big budget and like they're trying to capitalize on his name. But it's definitely not Terminator 2 era, you know.
Yeah, it's post. It's like last action hero has happened, and everyone's got a bit sick of it, and it's the 90s, and everything's a bit different, and we want different things.
It's the late 90s now instead of the early 90s.
And
we're heading into the Attitude Era. New Generation's gone.
Yeah, fucking hell, everything is wrestling.
Everything's wrestling.
But yeah, he's also kind of already done the peak of his comedy as well, I think. Although I would argue this may be part of that. Like Twins has happened, Junior's probably happened by this point.
Oh, undoubtedly Junior.
I think we're doing Jingle All the Way first for the record.
I think you're right.
We're already into it.
Kindergarten Cop's definitely happened.
Kindergarten Cop, of course, yeah.
You know how we joke about how Hulk Hogan kind of did a speed ran Arnie's comedy career, but then Vin Diesel and The Rock kind of speed ran Hulk Hogan's comedy era, and then The Rock's become much more successful since then. But it's almost like he did a few years of that where it was like he kind of wanted to almost break away from being muscle man action hero Conan, you know, like from way early on, and be much more kind of like family entertainment Arnie, and then circle back almost. And then you got Revival Arnie later on in Expendables and the like.
Yeah, which is never... I don't know that any of those, like... He never quite got back to that T2 is basically the point, isn't it? And there was a couple of, like, the comedy and the action tried to be in tandem. Like, there was Eraser, wasn't there, which is an attempt to do a serious one.
Yep.
End of Days, which I think is probably 99 by that point, is an attempt to do a real one. Last Action Hero is an attempt to do both, and nobody wanted that.
6th Day is like
sci-fi one, not deadly serious, but definitely more serious than Twins.
True.
And no one really wanted it, but he's there doing it, and he's lean for Arnie in this, right? Like his face feels kind of lean. You know when like Hulk Hogan got off the gas and his face kind of got all weird?
Yeah.
He looks like that to me. He kind of got that like the bug eyes because his face looks smaller to me. But effectively, Jingle All the Way is like a quest farce.
Yeah, honestly, it falls into a in my mind, it's almost like and I haven't seen this movie in a long time, so this comparison may be completely off, but it feels like Christmas Last Action Hero in a way.
Oh, that's very fair. Actually,
Last Action Hero maybe has like it's got that extra level of like meta narrative because it's like a movie within a movie, if I remember rightly. But it occupies the same cinematic space in my head, just with some snow on it and jingle bells. You know, that's pretty much the way I think of Jingle All the Way. And I definitely seen it. I probably went to the cinema to see it when I was.
I was going to ask whether you saw it when it was new.
I remember doing
definitely
that, but
didn't.
Yeah,
but
because what year did it come out?
I'm going to say 96 or 97. Let's
have a look. 96, correct.
96. Okay, yeah. So I'm assuming Christmas 96.
Spoilers for later. It premiered on November 16th, 1996 at the Mall of America.
That would make a lot of sense considering it's, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I think, can you quickly look up, I think this is as good as Starship Troopers in terms of being satire for what it's, and I know that's going to sound crazy, but did they come out in the same 12 months?
Let me look.
While you're being a fact check man, I honestly think what Paul Verhoeven did with that, Jingle All the Way is doing for kind of Christmas consumerism. And I know that's probably a big statement, but I genuinely love this film. You came out in the same 12 months?
Within the same 12 months, like 2 weeks. November 22nd, 96 is the Jingle All the Way release date, in the US. November 7th, 97 is Starship Troopers.
Right. I was wondering whether it was 97 or 98, but I just wonder if there was like, you're in one of those pop culture cycles of like parody at that point where this and Starship Troopers just fits perfectly within the way people are questioning culture.
Yeah.
And not to get too serious on that end, but it's just weird that they both exist in my head in the same time period. And as it turns out, actually,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think you're right. Because this can be played as a fairly straight Christmas movie for the most part. And I feel like I have a very strong memory of talking on the playground with, like my peers about Starship Troopers, and my parents really set the scene for me, and they'd read Heinlein and stuff before that, so they were aware of the property, and they kind of really framed it for me almost. And we're like, look at this amazing parody of sci-fi action films. It's a commentary on fascism and all this sort of stuff. So I had all of that in my head. And then I went and talked to the kids on the playground. And they were just like, oh, they blew up the bugs. And they were taking it completely as a straight movie without any of that subtext at all. And I think there's probably a group of people who would watch Jingle All the Way. And maybe it's most people would watch Jingle All the Way and just be like, family adventure, fast, fun, quest movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh, look at the 90s. Hey, isn't that the kid from Star Wars? And that's as much as they get from it. Oh, Sinbad's in it. I forgot about that. Like I did.
And I was thinking about Sinbad actually. It was just like
disappeared as well.
Yeah, it just disappeared. But was this the peak for Sinbad? That film that everyone remembers that doesn't exist.
The one that Shazam, which is I remember that Shaq film as being
It's so weird, but I honestly think like they do pretty much the same quality of satire, and yes, audiences weren't ready for them at the time. I think it's fair to say Starship Troopers has settled into being the quality that it is and the acceptance it has. I wonder whether Jingle All the Way still hasn't, based on a few of the comments I saw online that were just basically like, this movie's crap. It's just like, it's actually not. It's actually really brilliant and stupid.
Yeah, there are some crap elements to it, but overall, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's leaning into all the crap in a way. That's the best part of it. Quickly though, because it's kind of getting late here, so I'm going to open this beer if I'm going to do it.
Oh,
just let's play. What are you drinking?
Oh, I have a can of Diet Coke right now, being a basic bitch.
Good for you. I am opening this completely blank can
Yeah, that is a completely blank can. Where did you steal that from?
I got it. This was canned for me from a
Okay, from
tap.
like a tap. Okay.
Yeah, because it was a beer I couldn't drink that evening because I was driving. It is a 10% triple IPA called Tritium from a brewery called Equilibrium in Middletown, New York. That I had a little taste of it. I was like, amazing. I'd take a can of that away with me. So they will can it fresh. They will effectively do your pint and they will can it. Sometimes it doesn't work because the machine kind of is.
Oh, fucked, okay. Like to seal it and stuff. Where is that? Just at a bar or is that a brewery?
It was from. I'm just going to put this near the mic so you can get a little bit of that.
A little bit of ASMR.
ASMR.
Or BSMR.
Oh shit. Yeah, no, I got it from a Brewdog bar down in Cheltenham when I went to see Love Actually. In fact,
Oh, okay.
So, God, look how dark that is. Fuck me.
That is not a pale ale.
That is not a pale. I mean, it's a triple IPA or an imperial IPA.
An India pale ale.
Basically, yeah. It fucking smells amazing. I was so taken with it because you don't see triples very often. Us.
Oz Clark, your way into a description of this.
It is not tropical, but it's got a kind of like a sort of wheaty back to it, maybe. I forget what the hops in it are, but it's very strong. It tastes responsible, for want of a better term. You can taste the strength. And
see, now you said the description, it tastes responsible, makes me think of the smell of the health food shop we used to go to in Moseley when I was a kid.
No, it smells more like harvest time magic hour.
Oh, okay.
So it's got that very like fresh cut kind of summer, like late summer day vibe going on.
Okay.
Like it's not dank. It's very pleasing kind of harvest smell to it. I like a strong beer. Responsible means you can taste the alcohol in it, and I apologize if in an hour from now I'm pissed as a rat. But
okay,
I probably haven't eaten since breakfast. Actually,
oh, I see what you mean. So like essentially you couldn't drink it like pop and then be all drunk all of a sudden without realizing it. Like that's the responsibility of it is that it's like, oh, you know what you're drinking, so it's taking taking its duty as an alcoholic beverage seriously by telling you that it is.
Yes, okay. and it's ABV being double what most beers are.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like it's as strong as a glass of wine in a pint of beer, but it's not like going like, hey, like we're all juicy or what. I like the juicy ones too, but it's you can taste the alcohol in it, and I like that. I like when they're strong and you can taste it.
Okay.
And if you only get one beer in, which is all I'm going to get on this one, I like a stronger beer, but you just. The fashion for them has gone away a little bit.
Has it really?
Mm. So you don't see triples anymore. Sours, I think, based on this summer. There was a lot of very, very good sours around this summer. So kind of like a lot of the sours I don't like, but there was ice cream sours from a bunch of breweries this summer that I tried that finally got me on the sour train. Because a lot of them taste like toxic waste style sweets from the 90s.
Oh, weird. Okay.
And I'm just not about that.
No.
And but
it's like loaded with citric acid, essentially.
Yeah, and which is fine because, like, you know, sort of citrus IPAs and stuff like orange and sort of fruited IPAs and stuff are very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But not the sour end of it where it's just like, you know, sucks your face out. Can't be dealing with it. But the like ice cream sours were just delightful. They were like. There's a brewery called Yonder that's down in Somerset that's probably my brewery of the year, who made a bunch of these vegan ice cream sours, and I need to write them up for that site I do write-ups for, and they just did like bubblegum ones and what else did I try? There was like a coconut blueberry one.
Oh, okay.
Just like they're very beery.
Mm-hmm.
Got this kind of like amazing floaty like fruit taste to them as well.
Interesting. What was that one that you had me try? That was the like they did like a grapefruit one.
That's a radler. So that's literally a mix of juice. It's freshly made, usually juice and beer.
Oh, okay.
50%.
I could only
very, very low ABV.
One. Yeah.
I had you try one of the ones from one of the major producers.
It's like a German name.
Yeah, they're all German because it's a
Yeah.
German style of beer by Reds.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah, you get Radlers, and there's another kind which is the same thing, but basically, like, they would make them fresh in the morning with literal 50-50 juice and beer,
Okay.
and it's kind of like the alcoholic version of orange juice and lemonade. You know, like
Okay. Sure.
super
Yeah.
refreshing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can do it. But though the grapefruit one, if you can find it, is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you found a passion fruit one, which
Passion
I've never
fruit
seen
one,
over
yeah.
here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can do it with pretty much everything. But yeah, Radler or what's the other kind they do? Jutta would be very angry at me that I
feel like
can't
it's an
remember the
H
other kind
name.
of thing.
But maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're thinking of Hefeweizen, which is Hefeweizen, which is like a wheat beer.
Okay.
Anyway, beer. I like beer. But yeah. Anyway, I'm starting drinking at like after midnight, so let's see how this goes. But back to the film.
Back to the Jingle All the Way. Yes.
It's just like like you say, the advert as well. I've watched the trailer since.
Oh, really?
And it was
okay.
at the time. It was very, very much presented as like, this Christmas he's out to get the toy for his son, and like slaps. It went on the slapstick. It didn't go on any satire or any cleverness at all. I think it was meant to be presented as like a 4-quadrant kind of family movie, effectively.
Well,
but what
it's playing off on the Buzz Lightyear thing, isn't it? Very much so, which would have been the year or the 2 years before that. So was it 94 Toy Story, I think?
Yeah, 94, 95. Very good point. I had not considered that. In context, yes, it clearly is.
One of the, at least in my living memory, one of the first kind of toys that sold out everywhere at Christmas. Like Furby came a little bit later on, but I don't know if that sort of thing still happens because I'm just not connected to Kid World anymore. But it feels like it's a pastiche on that to an extent, and I wonder how present that was in people's minds at the time. It's like, oh, I remember that. This is like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go a little further back, and maybe this is a product of why it's happening in the late 90s, like the 80s and the culture behind like TV shows being there just to sell action figures and stuff.
Your Transformers and
Transformers, He-Man,
Care
Bears, looking what's on my shelf that I've still got. Ghostbusters.
Sure. The real Ghostbusters.
Any of that stuff, and you're in the run up to Pokemon,
Turtles
has happened, and all the B tier ones like Biker Mice from Mars.
I was just going to say Biker Mice from Mars, yeah.
Bucky O'Hare and stuff.
Oh, I love Bucky O'Hare.
And all the stuff that got converted into like the Hulk Hogan cartoon or the Rambo cartoon or the RoboCop cartoon or fucking what else did they do? Starship Troopers cartoon. That was later, right?
That was later. It was like a CG thing and it played very seriously.
Yeah, more seriously than the film, actually.
Yeah, way more seriously.
I remember about it. Roughnecks, right? It was called.
yeah.
But yeah, you've got that whole culture that's happened, and people it's kind of exposed, but also no one's really lampooned it in the way they're about to.
True.
And the guy who made this or wrote it done something else that's like of note. He'd also made the Flintstones film. I know that one.
Oh,
but there was something else that he made that made me think like, okay, that makes sense that he did that. But the only thing I can remember off the top of my head is Flintstones.
Interesting.
Because he's not really a name that became anything other than this. I mean, this film might have tanked him a little bit because I don't think he did well.
No, I mean, it doesn't even look like he's got a Wikipedia page.
Oh, poor old Brian Levant.
He's the director.
Okay.
It was written by Randy Cornfield.
That's got to be a cover
fake name. Yeah.
What else did Randy Cornfield write? That sounds like something we'd come up with.
It does.
Randy Cornfield.
I don't know. Let's go to IMDb and see if Randy Cornfield is credited with anything else.
Thank you for doing the investigation.
Oh, okay. Eight-Legged Freaks. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, I do. The Spider movie. That was a couple of years later. Yeah, okay. Which was also, again, kind of in this vein.
Jingle All the Way 2.
Oh, shit. He came back for that, which was a
straight-to-video thing in 2014.
Oh, shit. Was it as early as that? I thought it was more recent. It went straight to stream. It was Larry the Cable Guy.
Larry the Cable Guy. Oh, dear.
That's interesting, because that's kind of like, again, unexpected links back to Starship Troopers. Ed Neumeier basically did all the Starship Troopers sequels that didn't really get anywhere, didn't he?
I didn't know that. Okay.
Ed Neumeyer is I think he might have directed the third one, but he sticks around for most of the Starship Troopers quote unquote franchise.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much all he's done. He's got like a short to his name recently, but the last thing of note that he did was Jingle All the Way 2 in 2014. So it's pushing 10 years.
That's and yeah, and more than that since the first one. Did he do anything of note before Jingle All the Way? Like, how'd you get on a big studio film?
He did. He wrote something called Sweet Revenge as his first thing in '87, and then he doesn't do anything until '94, where he wrote something called Incident at Deception Ridge, which is a TV movie.
Hmm.
Then a couple of more TV movies, The Secretary and Blood Knot, and then Jingle All the Way.
Fascinating. I am gonna say I think that's somebody else working under an assumed name.
It says in the description on IMDb, it says third generation Californian CSUN film graduate, worked as a consultant at DreamWorks, Warner Brothers, United Artists, MGM, 20th Century Fox, and Sony. Sold scripts and had writing assignments with Disney and 20th Century Fox, Paramount, doing rewrite work on international productions in New Zealand and United Kingdom. Wife Sharon and sons Colin and James.
Okay, I must be wrong because that's way too much to fake.
Grandfather was a boom operator on Grapes of Wrath and I Love Lucy.
One day I will look him up and see if there's something Cornfield who worked on those things. That's way too much of a biography to be fake.
That's what I was thinking to be like an Alan Smithy, as it were.
Yeah, I wanted because Did you notice who the producer? Did you actually notice the production pedigree? I suppose on this film.
No,
it's a 1492 picture.
Chris Columbus.
Chris Columbus, but he's not really listed anywhere. But I imagine he's a smart enough man to go like, aha, yeah, there's something here with this one. And it made me think like this is we're getting ahead of ourselves. But if you put this film out in the early 90s, is it a hit? Is it just in the wrong era?
If you do it like 2 years after Home Alone instead of
around the same time as Home Alone. Yeah.
I think it might have been. I think you're right. I think it's almost because Chris Columbus is a very specific, and not that this feels in any way like a Chris Columbus film of that ilk. Like I remember watching, because I was very late to Harry Potter. I remember watching the first couple of Harry Potters and being like, why does this feel comfortable and familiar? I don't have any connection to this franchise, and yet this feels very comfortable and familiar. And then I found out, it's because it's a Chris Columbus film, and he does a thing. And
they were very smart in getting him to do those.
They really were. He worked for the early ones. I think he was essentially second to none in terms of people who they could have gotten to do it. But this feels much less like that, and I don't know, much more. I can't think what else it might feel like, but weirdly enough, the Phil Hartman character, I'm like, he almost feels like a more comedic version of the Tom Arnold character in True Lies. He occupies the same space, I'll give you that. But let's dive into it a little bit.
I was just going to say, can you quickly just look up the director for me and just see what his other pedigree was?
Brian Levant.
Yeah.
And
then we'll get into the
story. Of course. So his first film that he was credited as director is Problem Child 2.
Okay, that makes sense.
He did Beethoven in 92.
Oh, shit. Okay, right.
Flintstones in 94. Then Jingle All the Way. Then Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas in 2000. So he came back for that.
Okay.
Snow Dogs. I remember that. Was that Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Oh, I do remember Snow Dogs, yeah.
And then a few things that I don't recognize since then. His last director credit was 2017. A thing called Max 2 White House Hero.
That sounds like one of those dog movies, or like a Most Valuable Primate, or a...
Well, I just clicked on it, and the cover is an Alsatian standing in front of the White House with a medal on it.
There you go. That's going to be like, what's the Air Bud studio called? That make all those things. That'll be one of those.
Production companies, Orion Pictures. He did, between Snow Dogs and that, he did something called Are We There Yet? And The Spy Next Door. So he's only got like... 8...
Oh, shit. Those are both big films.
Really?
The Are We There Yet was Ice Cube, right?
Yes, Ice Cube, yeah.
And the spy next door was that Jackie Chan?
Oh, maybe.
Or am I confusing it with another?
No, it's Jackie Chan. You're right.
Yeah, okay, so he did all right. They're both films I would never have said like they're not director led projects, right? But he must have been a considered a good hand to be on projects like that.
Jackie Chan and George Lopez and Billy Ray Cyrus. Fucking hell.
I was trying to think who they stood. It was during that period of like Shanghai Nights and Rush Hour. Everyone wanted another Rush Hour.
It's the tail end of that. It's 09.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. You're trying to put together like, okay, who comedy people do we put next to Jackie during this?
Yeah.
So, and I'm to be honest, I'm probably the only one, but I still want that third part of the Shanghai Noon trilogy.
What would the third part be?
They did Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights with a K.
Mm-hmm.
Shanghai Dawn.
And where do you set Shanghai Dawn?
I mean,
does it swap? Does it swap and the fish out of water now becomes
Owen Wilson?
I was just going to say Owen Wilson. I'm like, fuck, was it Owen Wilson? And
I love that that's just come from somewhere like atavistic.
It really has, yeah. And it's set in like
you go back to China,
6th century China or something like that, and
6th century. It was like 1900 something.
No, but Shanghai Nights was set in medieval times, wasn't it? So you got to go further back.
It was set in Victorian London.
Was it really? I don't remember that at all. Then I thought they went Old West and then medieval. I don't think I ever saw Shanghai Nights now.
No, it was continuous. It was a direct sequel, same characters, same time period, but moved to London.
Are you serious? I didn't know that.
So I'm one of the few people who really like Shanghai Nights.
I loved Shanghai Noon. I don't know when Shanghai Nights must have come out, but I must have just not been paying attention.
I'm going to say 03 or 4. Can't have been much later than that. I think it was quite soon afterwards, to be honest. Because like that and what was High Binders really called once it actually came out? The Medallion or something? Like there was that whole period like after Rush Hour
03.
in 98, 99. 03, okay.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, more Jackie, like everyone loved a bit of Jackie Chan. And I'd been there since like Armor of God. What was that called? Fucking Project something 2 Armor of God was like my Jackie Chan one.
Was that like pre-Rumble in the Bronx and stuff?
It was around that same sort of time, yeah. Mid 80s, but I fucking Armor of God was the one I really loved. And was it Meals on Wheels or Wheels on Meals or whatever it's called? Was another good one. Not those badly dubbed ones that BBC used to show in the middle of the night. Anyway, yes. I'm just going to say I've had about half this beer, so that's why I'm rambling.
Marvelous. So, like, what was it? How did you describe this as like a Christmas quest movie? Is that how you described it at the start?
It's a quest. I would call it a quest farce because I'm a big fan of quest narratives, which is just we've got to go over here and we've got to do this, which is him going to get the toy.
Yeah.
But then you've got that the layer on top of that, all the slapstick and everything is it just feels like pure, doors slamming, crazy shit happening French farce to me. So it's like a quest farce is the best way to describe it. He's got to go do a thing, but all the shit that will be thrown at him is for laughs.
Yeah, I mean the narrative is fairly simple. It's like, and one of the first things that made me laugh in the movie is the compilation of "You're my favorite customer," and he says to his wife, I was like, that's great stuff.
And forget you're my favorite customer.
Yeah. And so you get this framing device of like, okay, he's a family man. Does he sell like beds or couches or something?
Yeah, mattresses.
Yeah.
Judging by the warehouse, where the biggest Christmas party ever is happening.
Yes,
like those people are having the craziest time.
They're having a nuts time, and he's in the office taking orders. Yeah. Which, like, who's calling them buying a mattress on Christmas Eve?
Like the whole warehouse full by Friday or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? When it comes up with the notes from his secretary or whatever on that screen?
Yeah.
It says warehouse, but it spells it WHERE house.
Warehouse. I don't know.
Like,
warehouse.
That can't be a mistake.
No, it's got to be
just be intentional because like warehouse.
Yeah.
So he's on the phone,
but he's like a business obsessed like 90s dad. He's got his fax and his pager and all this shit. And takes a call from his wife, promising to be at the kids. Was it a karate or?
Yeah, the original one is a karate like belt ceremony or
Yeah,
something,
yeah. He's going to get the
where
kid's
there's
getting
like
his purple belt.
57 kids getting their belts for some
Right.
reason.
Exactly. And we kind of get this hint that he's missed a lot of this shit in the past.
Yeah.
And he promises to be there, doesn't live up to his promise, which, by the way, is where the 6th Day crossover comes in.
Go on.
Do you remember there's an episode? There's a part of the 6th Day where he goes to a school. I think it's a school. Is it a school? It must be a school. And there's like Michael Rooker and whoever the other guy is, like remote controlling some dogs.
Okay.
And they've got like the kid or his wife or I forget who, like pinned up against the lockers, and they're remote controlling the dogs to like intimidate them. And he comes in, and it's like an empty school thing. And what you see is like he arrives late, and there's a guy pushing a big old broom around because it's all done, and he's in an empty school now. And for some reason, I conflated the two films at the same time. I was like, when did the dog show up?
Oh my god! Wow. Okay, that's. I wonder if that's not intentional, but it's just kind of like, how do we do this scene? Oh, I did. You know, well, on Jingle All the Way we did this. What if we do it again? Type. What a weird thing.
Yeah.
What a weird thing.
It could just be my head putting those two things together. But we're also at this point introduced to. So we see he's obviously busy doing his business thing, and the kid is, the kid is played by Jake Lloyd, Lenny, and he's forlornly looking around. No, bien, we got lots of that.
Lots of that.
He's
fucking watto. It's when he shows up in the
character.
Is it in yes, I hard agree. He shows up showing that little Tommy, wearing that little Tommy helmet from First World War. Is that in the third one
Sith,
in Star Wars Negatize? Yeah. And he's back there, but he's like really old by this point.
Negatize is in the first one.
No, Negatize is in the third one, where they're crashing the ship and they're told to negatize the.
Oh, you're right. It is. Shit, I was thinking it was the Qui-Gon Obi-Wan thing, but you're right. No, it's not.
No, it's when they're crashing the ship. We are still flying half a ship.
Exactly, we're on completely the other way. Yeah.
Do you know? Quick random aside. Disney are letting those back out in cinemas.
I didn't know that. When's that happening?
It's I think any day now. PCC started advertising a couple of weeks ago, and they're showing the first 6.
Interesting.
In installments over different weeks. And if they do an all...
Chronological order or story order?
Oh, that is a fine point. I think it's a shotgun kind of across a couple of weeks type thing. So across Christmas, you can see all of them in varying orders depending on how you want to see them.
Okay.
I could be wrong. It could be a week each or something.
So, I think they're showing... I was thinking it was like one of those marathons that you've been to in the past where they just do...
No, I was about to say, actually, if they do... There was a slot, and I think it was last night, where they had one all-nighter, but the other screen had been left free. And in my head, I was thinking if they put in the Christmas... Hang on, let me back up. So when they do all-nighters, they'll put one in, like Lord of the Rings or whatever, and then the other screen will be there, and you're like, okay, they're going to do something with that because they got the building open, so why not?
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a Christmas all-nighter happening in a couple of weeks, and I think they were keeping it free to see if the Christmas all-nighter did well, they could put it on again.
Okay.
But they kept it free until like a week ago, and they had, I think it was Lord of the Rings. They had Lord of the Rings in one, and they had a free spot, and I'm like, they're going to put something in there. It'll be the Christmas one if it's selling well enough, which turns out it's kind of maybe not. But and then I was like, what are they going to put in there? What are they going to put in there? And then I was like, oh, then the Star Wars thing got announced. They're showing all the films. I'm like, if they put a fucking Star Wars all-nighter in, I'm going.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, you give me the first 6 like we did that once, I'm there for that. Fuck it.
Crazy curtains closed headache day.
Yeah, I remember 9 a.m. that fucking episode 1 was a slog.
Oh, Jesus.
But we enjoyed it because it was the first time we saw the final cut, right? With all the different takes and stuff. But it was a really, really nice day. We should do it again one day.
I agree.
But I thought
with the new ones too.
That's like 9 films. Also, those, like, I know we've discussed it in like Force Awakens is pretty good, and I really like Last Jedi, but that last one is
not the best.
Rough.
Yeah.
But, you know...
And Solo and Rogue One. No.
Oh, God, yeah. God. And, wait, there's another spin-off, right? Isn't there? Solo and Rogue One?
Solo.
Maybe there's not, actually. Maybe there's not another film. I don't know. And then there's Mando, and
Oh, true.
I'm way behind on the series. I haven't even watched Obi-Wan, and that came out like a year ago. Anyway, so it's showing the probably the McClunky cuts, right? The final cuts of these films in cinemas. And I thought if they put on an all-nighter of those, I'm going. And Beth's got a friend called Mitchell who's a big Star Wars fan. I'm like, tell Mitchell if they put this on, he's coming. Because I think it'd be really fun to just sit up all night and watch all the Star Wars with him.
Definitely.
And they didn't do that. And then they put on a mystery all-nighter. So at some point, I need to look up and see what the mystery all-nighter was.
Yeah.
Because that's a bold move right before Christmas to go like, hey, come and see 5 films and we're not going to tell you what they are. We did that at Halloween and they were, I'm not going to say they were all duds, but it wasn't the all-nighter I would have put on.
Right.
So at some point I'll look that up. I'll let you know. But I wish they'd done that. But it's fascinating because Disney have really changed their business model a bit recently. Like I think Disney Plus and the pandemic years and stuff have kind of slightly nudged them in a kind of like, yeah, we put all our eggs in a basket, but we're not sure about the basket anymore. And they've gone weirdly like quite hard on physical media again.
Oh,
like very expensive special editions of like Mandalorian on UHD. And they seem to be going like, okay, live presentation again.
Interesting.
So they're letting things back out into cinemas. Okay. And I'm like, okay, this is fascinating. So the business model...
Less just relying all on streaming.
Yeah, is kind of going like, streaming's there, and that's good for most people, but we can make more per head in all these other ways. Like if we sell like a 50 quid UHD special
Mando
edition numbered 1,000 cup Mando box set to enough people, we make whatever 50 times 1,000 is. You know, the same with like a 200 seat place showing Star Wars. Like people will go to these things because I think post pandemic people value that live tangible experience again.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see more and more of this with the Disney model, but it's fascinating to see that they've let them out to the PCC because that's exactly the kind of place that can probably get repeat business for a couple of years at them.
I think you're really right. Yeah. To me, it feels like the kind of thing that would fit more into, at least over here, into like what I think of being like the Fathom Events mold, where they're the company, brings back, they'll show Top Gun or whatever, in a regular cinema alongside whatever the current releases are, rather than kind of being in what I would think of as being the more repertory space, which is what I think of the PCC as.
Which is weirdly where like post-pandemic where cinema's going. Like, I've been to see 2 classics this week, like the Christmas, like what the PCC model is slowly becoming, Prince Charles Cinema for anyone still listening, is becoming a little bit what wider cinema is doing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Like all these classics are out there showing quite widely.
Yeah.
Because
that's true.
now it's more of a smorgasbord, right? It's not just like whatever big movie 6 times a day.
It's not like Avengers 12, that's in 20 cinemas with, half hourly start times. I think they've really realized that model has probably had its time, and this almost feels like an experimentation period where they're trying to get people in any way possible, almost.
Anyway, should we get back to...
let's get back to Jingle All the Way. Yeah. So the movie starts and we've got that, we already talked about like that whole scene, but then there's like two competing narratives. You've got Arnie rushing there, trying to get through Christmas traffic. And this is the first encounter with the bike cop.
He's at this point, he's just trying to be a good dad.
Trying to be a good dad.
Failing at miserably.
Exactly. He's trying to get to the karate thing. And like ends up driving down the shoulder or something and gets pulled over.
I'm going to make it.
I'm going to make it. Yeah. And that's his first encounter with the bike cop who recurs throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And then we keep cutting back to the karate ceremony, and the mom's there. And who's next to the mom, Mark?
Our late departed hero, Phil Hartman.
Who is fucking Hartman.
Of Simpsons Lionel Hutz fame and of Third Rock from the Sun fame and SNL fame. Mm-hmm. Any number of things you want to know Phil Hartman from, in full pudgy face mode, fucking killing it, turning it up to 11 in this film.
Absolutely killing it. He's amazing in this film.
He's the sort of horny divorcee neighbor.
Yeah.
Who is there?
All the other moms, except for Arnie's wife, seem to want to fuck.
No, I think they have fucked him.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
This is where I think people, not people misunderstand.
Because they're like, oh yeah, you
like came over and you fixed my back door or whatever. Like, like there's all this stuff where it's like
trimmed my front porch or whatever.
Yeah. There's all that stuff, and they're always bringing him food, and he's the really good, whatever. And he, the mask slips a bit, doesn't it, throughout the film with Phil Hartman, where he's clearly a piece of work.
Yeah,
he yells at the kids and whatnot. But no, I think he's fucking everyone in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And Arnie's wife is the one he can't get.
And that's why he goes so hard for her.
That's why he goes so hard.
Because he's got to finish his collection.
He's a real piece of shit. He's trying to get bingo.
Yeah, he is. He's a giant piece of shit in this movie, but you still love him somehow.
You still love him because he's just, as an actor, he's just fucking killing this part.
He's so charismatic. He's just wonderful.
But yeah, and I think, I think he's fucked everyone, and all their husbands are shit. And Arnie is also a shit husband, but he's also built like Arnie, right?
Yeah.
So, I think Hartman has fucked every other every other wife in
the bored housewife, essentially.
Yeah, bored housewife, exactly that. And I think he's going after the one last prize, which is why he's so determined.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know who she is, by the way?
No, I kind of vaguely recognized her face, but I couldn't place her.
Rita Wilson, I think, is the name, unless I'm very mistaken. It's quite late at night now.
No, you're right.
Who is Tom Hanks' wife?
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah, that's if you've ever seen that thing where the TMZ folks get too close to Tom Hanks, he's like, knocking over my wife or whatever. That's Rita Wilson. Okay. So she didn't have a long career. They got married and then I think she settled into producing, I think, largely.
Okay.
And so she's not in a lot of things, but this is one of the big ones. So
good for her. Very cool.
But anyway, so he's after her. I don't really know. What do you make of Arnie in this, where he's kind of like, he is lying to his wife for a lot.
Oh, he's a piece of shit in many ways. Like,
does he want to be better, or is he just kind of like, is he a salesman? Is he just selling the idea that he's better?
That's a really interesting thought. I hadn't considered it, because there are moments where it particularly near the end, where there seems to be a good measure of genuineness. That he
interesting. Okay, yeah. I have a different take on it.
Interesting. Okay, and it's all very schmaltzy and over the top, but to speak to your point about is he just a salesman? I found the whole scene of when they finally make it home from the karate thing, and he gets
a nice
home.
Scene with the sun where it's like, I'm going to make it up to you, which I promise.
I'm not going to describe it as the nice scene with the sun. I actually described it as, in my head, as the scene I wanted to skip because it was so painful to watch.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah.
Because
quote unquote nice.
Yeah. He's trying so hard and it just it all reads as so massively fake, and he just wants to sew it all up. It's like he's
trying to get the sale. He's trying to sell the sun on his love.
It's if you think about it like in medical terms, it's not the chemo, it's the analgesic. It's like the painkiller. He's trying to mask the symptoms and just be like, Keita Nomura, essentially. And
he just needs to make it go away so he can carry on.
Exactly, just needs to make it go away so he can continue with life as it is, and seem like a good dad. Because
he's after we haven't said it yet,
Turbo Man
doll that his son wants, and his son is like, but don't you find actually in that scene with the son where he's like, whoever doesn't get the doll is going to be a real loser. Like it's really like
laid on very
hard
thick.
Consumerism. Right?
It is.
Like the kid is something, and it's presented as like okay.
Well, and he almost like
it's not going to be you,
Yeah, well, and the kid even like it was actually, it felt almost like a callback to a movie it's on most people's rotations here, but I didn't see it until I moved here, and that is Christmas Story.
Okay.
Which really doesn't get much play in the UK, and I still don't really like it, if I'm honest. I don't love it. So it feels very cheap and too long, and I just don't like it very much. But there's a moment in that where the kid, he wants a BB gun, and he always says the phrases from the ad. And Jake Lloyd does that in this. He's almost like reading ad copy, and he I can't remember what the
because when he describes it, he says the full advert, doesn't he?
Exactly,
with the two phrases and the punching action and the voice changer and
battery sold separately or whatever.
He literally does that, don't he? Accessories, battery sold separately.
Yeah.
So I've not considered it, but if you're looking at it as a parody of something, it definitely is something like Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Fascinating, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
And that quest isn't in Christmas Story of like him trying to get the gun, because that's not the focus of the film. But because the kid wants it, but it's not focused on the parent at all. But that sets up the narrative for the rest of the film. And clearly, he's so out of the loop that he doesn't understand the Buzz Lightyear effect that's gone on with Turbo Man. Like he doesn't even, like he keeps referring, like, or actually finds out he refers to him as Turbo Guy or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like,
and Myron keeps calling him Turtle Man.
Turtle Man, yeah, exactly. And so, but he also again lies to his wife when
I totally got the dog.
Oh, I got it like 2 months ago. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Christmas Eve is the next day. So this is all happening on presumably December 23rd.
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve, exactly. And then Christmas Eve comes, and he's buggering off to go and buy Turtle Man.
Try and get the dog, which is like the whole story gets set in motion.
And that starts the whole movie. And it's all set in the Twin Cities, in St. Paul, Minneapolis area in Minnesota, which I currently have a connection to because that's where my company's based. So
I was going to say, like, do you think, like, after watching this, you might go down the kind of like
I already went
Jingle All the Way tour?
Well, I already went down the Mighty Ducks tour, so why not?
Why not?
It's largely the same place because it's just Mall of America, which really doesn't look like it did. Oh, I also did the Mallrats tour because that was shot at Eden Prairie Mall. I went to the Eden Prairie Center the last time I was there.
You need to do the Nitro, WCW Nitro tour as well. That was Mall of America, right?
Oh, was it?
Was the first episode not in the Mall of America?
Oh, I don't know.
Where Luger comes out? I think it was in the Mall of America.
Oh, okay. Mall of America is interesting because it obviously it's just a big mall, but clearly it's undergone renovation. So the basic layout is still the same, but it doesn't feel like the 90s in there. Whereas Eden Prairie still kind of felt a bit like the 90s, which I quite liked.
I bet it fucking did, actually. Yeah. It was, There's some stuff in this where without checking, I wonder, because there's some stuff that, like the parade, some of it looks like backlot.
It does, yeah. There's a moment where they were in the car together, and it just looked, like Ghostbusters or something in the background.
Yeah, which makes sense because it's such a big sequence that you probably would go into that backlot. But there's also some stuff when they're supposed to be in Mall of America, where to me it looks like the Beverly Center in LA.
Oh, possibly, yeah.
Because the Beverly Center is featured in like Chopping Mall and a bunch of other films like Commando and stuff. Okay. And a lot of malls probably look the same, but there's some bits where it's like, that looks like the fucking Beverly Center to me. But yeah, effectively the whole film then just becomes a farcical parade of sequences of him trying to find the toy and then ending up at the parade he's promised his son he'll be at.
Right.
Where he ends up dressed as Turbo Man and etc. So do you want to, like, what's the best way to approach this? Like, can I bring up the absolutely heartbreaking point of the film scene with Sinbad, where he basically says he had the same situation with what's it called, like a Joe 7 doll or something?
Yes, yeah, something like that. Yeah,
and he wanted the exact same thing, but then he's berating his son for wanting it for consumerism things, but he wanted exactly the same thing, and his dad didn't get it.
He's berating his son for it in his imagination at the same time as choking a random woman in the crowd.
Oh, yeah. I love the fact that he chokes that woman. He just, because he's like, I think he's a psychopath. There's no evidence that
he's got a son.
He has a son.
No, I don't. I thought the same thing. I think he's like a random loony.
He might just be out for this doll because he's cracked. He might not even be a mailman. I mean, he's got the trunk, but like, I love the fact that his go-to, like, he jumps from like 5 to 15 in terms of like levels of whatever immediately, and anytime his go-to thing is "this is a bomb."
That's true. Yeah. It's like always like a package that this is a bomb. Yeah.
This is a bomb, and then obviously the second time it
ends up being a bomb. Yeah.
So
which I thought was going to
somehow everyone survives it.
I was going to say I thought that was going to because the way that's done is there's a series of farces. Like it starts off where they're all waiting. This is where Myron, who's Sinbad's character, and Arnie's character, whose name I can't remember.
He keeps calling him Howitzer, but I don't know what his real name is.
Yeah.
It's something Howard, something Howard, maybe, I don't know.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Howitzer.
Howard Langston.
Okay, there you
go. Where they meet, and they're waiting outside for the store to open, and there's like a officious Jobsworth fascist employee in the middle who's like holds up his clock behind the locked
2
doors.
minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes to 9. And that's the first scene. Everyone rushing in to go and try and buy the Turbo Man, and it's a sold out everywhere. And there's a moment there where like he talks to a couple of shop guys. Arnie does.
Yeah, Chris Parnell, and I forget who the other guy is. Right?
Yeah, and that was one of the moments where I was like, this needed some better direction. Because
do you think?
I couldn't stand their performances. They were like, what they felt like to me was late era, like Ryan Reynolds before he got popular, late era National Lampoon's level performances. They were turned up to 15, never mind 11, and they just needed someone to rein him in and say, can we do this just pull it back 25% rather than
this guy wants Turbo Man.
Like that was like what were the dumbasses in Power Rangers called? There's a lot of Power Rangers. I was going to say
the Burton
Clunk and whatever, Blunt. Blunt. It wasn't Blunt. Buzz and Clunk.
Blunt.
But I want to say Buzz and Clunk, but I don't think that's right either. But that level of performance, and it just it ripped me out of it just for a second.
Okay, can I posit at you the idea that that's the point?
I would like you to expand upon that.
I think they are turned up to 11 because although this film was trying to present as a 4-quadrant family-friendly comedy about a guy trying to find a toy on Christmas Eve and slapstick, it is actually satire.
Okay.
And I think that's the first like really overt sign that it's very, very satirical. Gotcha. And Hartman is meant to be the sign before that because he's like dialed all the way up.
That's
he's
true.
Like banging all the wives and stuff. And Arnie is also playing it very broad. Rita Wilson's probably the only one until almost the end where she's kind of playing quite seriously.
That's true, yeah.
And Jake Lloyd is almost over the top, but that could be because of his
he's just brain. A kid. Yeah.
But he's being told what to do and he's nailing it for what, poor old Jake Lloyd. But I absolutely think that I think that's the point.
That's the point. Okay. All right. Yeah.
What they've been told to do because that's the movie they're really making.
That makes sense.
And that leads straight, it doesn't lead straight into the ball sequence with the kid and the pervert and all that sort of stuff, does
No,
it?
it doesn't. But, that's a little bit later on, but this begins the escalation of Sinbad's arc of violence.
Yeah, escalation is a perfect word for it.
Because it does start off relatively innocent. In that he like swings his mailbag at Arnie, which is pretty mean thing to do. It could be heavy.
He's already choked a woman by this point.
He has already choked a woman, but I guess his arc of violence towards Arnie starts at this point, and it's just like a swat with a bag, and it knocks him down, and then again you've got that very over the top sequence with the remote control car where he trips up Sinbad, and then they're racing off to the next place to do their next fast set piece, and I can't remember what that is.
He chases the woman who has one on layaway, right?
That's it, yeah, in the car.
Do you then go into the Simpsons-style montage of where you see all the toy signs? Is it that when he's going everywhere else and then he ends up...
I think so, yeah.
...outside the place with the cop and then they hear that the other place has some, the Mall of America place.
They end up in like a diner or a bar.
No, the diner is before the radio station, so we're not that far away.
Okay. So how do they find out that they've got... Yeah, it's out in the street that they find out somehow that they've got some.
There's a guy who just walks by and like.
Oh, I think you're right.
Has a late delivery or whatever. That's how they go to the Mall of America.
And I do quite like that scene where the guy is announcing again. It's an officious, like fascistic store manager.
He's got the Fisher Price.
Exactly. Yeah. He's got like a Fisher Price microphone, like a blue plastic or whatever microphone hung around his neck as a PA
You're going to get a ball, and if the ball is the correct number, like the system makes no sense.
Makes no sense whatsoever.
And then everyone fights over the balls, which would have killed it entirely.
Yeah.
But I also adore that. And then he chases the kid who gets the ball for no reason.
Yeah, because we don't know that was the winning ball.
It's completely meaningless.
No, it's completely meaningless.
The balls, right?
But that ball, like it's cartoon style. It bounces out the store, and he chases it, and he's like chasing it through the Mall of America, and it does kind of feel like an excuse to do glory shots in the Mall of America. Which, by the way, just sidebar while we were talking, I did look it up, and it was shot in Minnesota.
All of it.
It says 5 weeks in Minnesota, so maybe they've had some pickups afterwards. Parade was filmed at Universal.
That would make a lot of sense because
Yeah.
that feels like backlot, very
Yeah.
much like backlot. It wouldn't surprise me if they then did bits and pieces around Los Angeles.
Okay, so that scene happens, and then he ends up in a ball pit, and a kid puts the ball in his mouth, and he tries to get the ball out.
It's a little girl, but yeah, he chases her around a bizarrely well built
like Discovery Zone type thing.
Yeah, because he sort of jumps across one of those bridges and somehow it doesn't
collapse. Yeah,
which is amazing considering how he's probably like 260
200 pounds
least,
plus.
Right?
Yeah. You know,
so
I actually had flashbacks to an old wrestling thing that I saw relatively recently where it was like hardcore division in about 99 or 2000 in the WWF. And they were in one of those. It was like Crash Holly.
Crash Holly did the ball pit thing,
Mm-hmm.
But then the kid, he's trying to get the ball out of the kid's mouth, and then all the mothers start hitting him with handbags.
Yeah.
Just love it. And then somehow he just walks away from that.
Yes.
Because we're on to the next set piece.
Yeah.
Then you get into the giant Santa fight, which is just like the Santa
Is
underworld.
that when that happens? So Santa, the whole Santa cartel thing happens before the radio station, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so he's walking through the mall forlornly, and
Jim
Belushi says, "Hey kid, come in."
You want a Turbo Man?
Yeah. And then one of his elves, who I recognize that actor as well, but I can't picture what from. Was he in?
He's
Elf?
been in a lot of stuff, but I can't think off the top of my head what. I don't think he's in.
No, he's not in Elf.
No,
because that's Peter Dinklage, isn't it?
Yeah, Dinklage is
but I've seen he's one of those little guys who you see in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of shit. I can't remember what else, but another like slightly hard film as well. I think.
But he holds up a Polaroid, which looks like a hostage photo.
It really does. Taken this morning, right, with the newspaper,
the Turbo Man. Yeah, and it is promising to like we'll give you this Turbo Man, and then what happens, Mark?
They go to a warehouse where all the Santas are effectively making like outlaw knockoffs of
compound.
Toys. Yeah, a giant
compound
with the dog with the reindeer ears is worth mentioning at this point.
As
I
guard
like the
dogs,
dog with the reindeer ears. And they get in there, and then the giant Santa fight happens. Where the Big Show shows up and punches a little person across the room.
Yeah,
which is where if you think you're watching a serious film at this point, you long gone because that punch should never work like that. But the little person is on. They're all trying to dogpile on Arnie because he's called them on their bullshit because he tried to offer him a Turbo Man. The Turbo Man falls apart and speaks Spanish, right?
Correct.
And then they want $300 for it. And then the little person
actually yells dogpile.
Belushi yells dogpile. Little person's on Arnie's head. I was about to say Sarnie there. On Arnie's head. Big Show comes out, who would have been the Giant.
The Giant at that point, it would have been 96. It would have been WCW,
and it's very clearly the Big Show.
Yes, it could be no one else. Yeah.
I'm gonna deck your holes, Bob, or whatever. And Arnie just thinks to duck, and Big Show punches the little person across the room. Who is also dressed as Santa. Like they're all Santas. It's so bizarre. And
there's a couple of like Mrs. Clauses sprinkled in there as well. And then the police bust in.
Arnie somehow gets out of that by pretending he's an undercover officer with a fake badge.
Fake toy badge from one of the boxes. Yeah.
I've been working this case for 3 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And then randomly he just drives, he runs out of gas, right? And he pushes the car.
Yes.
To the diner where he stops. Where he runs into Myron again.
Right.
And that's where the radio show somehow, he speaks to the kid again. And he's like, I promise I'm coming. You don't break a promise, whatever.
Is that when they have the argument?
Yeah, him and the kid have the big argument.
Yeah.
And he promises he's going to make the parade. And then him and Myron are openly drinking at the counter in this abandoned diner for some reason. And then the radio show says they've got one down at the thing and they race down to the radio station.
Well, he tries to
win a Turbo Man.
So it's like a first caller with the right answers, and it's Santa's reindeer. So he's like reciting them to himself, Arnie.
Yeah, Donner Blitzen.
And he goes to the phone booth in the corner of the diner, which has a door on it. And
like it's the 50s.
Like exactly, yeah. And he gets on the phone, and they pick up. But then Myron is like, "No, you don't," and like rips the cord out.
Rips the phone out, but then keeps speaking to it, doesn't he?
Yeah, keeps speaking to it.
It's so weird. Myron is so crazy.
He's nuts. And then Arnie smashes Myron's hand in the door and decides that like the guy behind the diner bar says like the radio station's
just
like
2
2 blocks
away,
away. Yeah, exactly. And so ensues a chase down to the radio station because
in
for
between
some
that is
reason
where we've had the really sad scene for the record where
yes, go
the
into
heart
that,
to
yeah.
heart scene happens about Myron's childhood, and they're drinking the whiskey and the coffee openly at the counter and the thing. Like, it's just so bizarre. But
It really is.
this again, like, there's at no point here are we in a real world space.
No,
this is gone.
It's this hyper real universe. Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. But then he arrives at the radio station, which seems to be staffed solely by the DJ. There's like no one
who's
else
played
in
by
there.
someone else, but I can't remember.
Yeah, he's like a guy who just kind of has DJ.
I think he was in Roseanne, but I can't remember what else.
Wasn't he the boss in Roseanne? Like the boss of the
diner owner?
Diner?
Yeah.
And it's Martin Mull.
Oh,
Martin Mull is the guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
cool. Well done.
He Arnie like literally smashes the glass door to get in.
He does. It just completely explodes.
It does.
That's fine. It just moves straight past it.
But like seems to think that like breaking into this radio station and telling them the correct answer, like he's celebrating. It's like because Myron arrives a few seconds later and he's like, "You're too late. I already told him the answer. I've won. Yes." And he's like, "Yes, I've done it." And then Martin Mull breaks it to them that it was
just like
a gift certificate,
voucher,
yeah.
Which Arnie does pocket and is never brought up again.
He does. That's true. Yeah,
he pockets the voucher for the Turbo Man, and then never comes up again. But
no.
But then the radio station man has already called the police, who send like an entire
send like a SWAT team. Yeah.
Which I love. And then you get Myron's first like, "It's a bomb. I'm a male person. I'm out of my mind," or whatever. No, that's the second time he does it. He does it twice in that same scene.
It's the first
same set of scenes. He does it once in the studio
with
turns out to be a music box.
Mm-hmm.
Then he does it once in front of the police where it turns out to actually be a bomb, which is like a budget thing maybe, but you never see an explosion, right? You just get a camera shake and a noise.
Because that's why I thought it was going to be oddly dark or like a dark twist to it, because you see Arnie running away from the building and then there's an explosion.
Yeah, and the camera shakes and it's the explosion. Exactly. But then somehow everyone survived.
But then it cuts to it and it's like the one it's that
Looney
same
Tunes,
bike cop and he's like his hair's blown back and his face is black and it's that's it, you know.
And then
but I thought we weren't going to cut back to that, and it was just like, oh, I guess that a bunch of cops died.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. If they had done, like, it would have been quite different, wouldn't it? But it's just like we're into full-blown Looney Tunes territory at this point. It's a live-action cartoon. Arnie goes back to his car, which has been completely
stripped.
Destroyed.
Yeah, it's like everything is gone. It's just a frame at that point.
But then he heads home. With
he does. This is the break home, isn't it? Yeah. So earlier in the film, when he was heading out to buy to like start this adventure, he runs into Phil Hartman, and Phil Hartman has a reindeer with him.
Yes,
and the reindeer.
I can't believe we forgot to mention the reindeer.
Yeah, and the reindeer takes against Arnie immediately.
Yeah.
And it's like Phil Hartman says, "Oh, it must be your aftershave or something. There's something he doesn't like about you." And so Arnie ends up coming back home, and
before he goes into the house, he remembers that Phil Hartman has already got his son a Turbo Man, which is under the tree.
Yeah,
so he decides to go and steal it.
Yes,
and that's when he falls afoul of the reindeer again, and you get a scene which is blown past very quickly, where Arnie has a fight with a reindeer.
He punches the reindeer.
He punches, this is the thing. Arnie, if you like, you know that whole like, you'll believe a man can fly thing from Superman.
Yeah.
You'll believe Arnie can punch a reindeer. But he also basically sets Phil Hartman's house on fire.
He does, yeah.
And for some reason, everyone just still goes to the parade.
Yep, the house is on fire.
Care. It's fully on fire. They put it all out, and it's just like, okay, all this destruction's fine. Let's go to the parade, and I love it.
But there's a moment there, but right after he punches the reindeer, where it cuts to the reindeer like lying on the floor, and the reindeer's been making reindeer noises up to this point, but for some reason they lay it in like a real human going, which sounded in my mind it was Jim Belushi just going.
Yeah, that's great. It's the thing. It really is just kind of like a guy, like amazing. But and then he kicks the on fire thing through the window at the carolers. But then they have the big blow up with the wife and stuff, and it's Phil Hartman's driving everyone to the parade, and Arnie's just left there. But then it just cuts to him drinking beers with the reindeer for some reason. And he's just like, "Can I buy you another round?" And he's just pouring beers into like a bowl for the reindeer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I really like the fact that it's him and the reindeer pouring into the bowl. And he's mentioned the playhouse he built. This is really badly done, actually, but it must have been a thread in the script that was like pull back a bit. But earlier on he said about building the playhouse and how it was the best day he had with his son, and he sat by that playhouse.
Is he really? Okay, I missed that.
And it's not really considered, but then he sees the drawing that his son was doing earlier of him, and it's in the playhouse.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that drawing was a post decision, because when he stood there with the drawing behind him, it looks like it's kind of layered in, like comped in. I think that putting that drawing back there is a not a reshoot, but like a kind of post decision. But anyway, doesn't make a difference.
I love that the drawing of Arnie is fucking stacked, though. It's like a triangle man. Yeah.
Like they're wearing, and the way the wife's drawn as well is quite funny. But they're all like on holiday, happy together, aren't they? And that's when he decides, like, yeah, okay, that's maybe the point where it's become, I'm actually going to do this. I'm not just going to pretend I'm doing it. It's not about,
Right, but another thing, this reinforces a point that you brought up, in that it reinforces the notion that the Arnie's character is a bit of a piece of shit, because this is the second time within about 15 minutes that he's turned to the bottle.
It's a very good point.
His solution to things seems to be lying and drinking.
Oh, wow. It's such a dark film. It
really is, like, unexpectedly so.
Like, it's dark, but it's just kind of like, let's just hide it all in slapstick.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's anything earlier in the film where he's drinking before that. I bet there's not, but...
I wish he'd given like a hip flask at work and he was taking shots between phone calls or something.
Yeah, or if there's just something in the background in the office, like he's got a decanter of whiskey or something.
Yeah.
But you're right, he goes like, why not, when Sinbad offers him the... Isn't it called like Old Homesteader or something? It's got one of those names, like a proper old whiskey name. And he puts it in the coffee at the thing, and then you're right. And then but somehow he's just got a 6-pack of like... I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I
assume he's
like Miller or something.
Yeah.
Schlitz, I don't know.
Yeah, whatever the Minnesota beer is that paid to be in the movie.
He's just suddenly got a 6-pack.
Which I assume
he's only had one by right.
Yeah, I assume he stole that from Phil Hartman's fridge.
Right, yes, exactly. I bet he did. Actually.
In the den,
But you're right. It's just like he does go to drink quite quickly. That's a very fine point. But anyway, he's decided he's going to go to the parade and he's going to make things right somehow.
Right, but this leads into kind of essentially the conclusion of the film.
The conclusion of the film, where he gets the parade and somehow ends up in the Turbo Man costume on the parade float, and we're into the final act of it all. And Turbo Man gets to give away a toy, and he picks his own son and gives the toy to him, but then Myron shows up somehow dressed as the villain. Yep. How does Myron even... Like, if you want logic, there's no reason for Myron to know that it's Howitzer in the Turbo Man suit.
None whatsoever. No.
There's no reason for
But his motivation is just that he's heard that he's going to give away a toy, so he can get access to a toy.
I don't think you need to even go that far.
Probably
it's happening because it's happening at this point.
But
that's what I do.
We kind of get a Wild West moment here as well, right before he gets into the Turbo Man costume, where Arnie shows up at the parade, and he sees Phil Hartman and his wife in the car together, and Phil Hartman is going hard after her right now.
Yeah, he's really.
He's got the non-alcoholic eggnog. And
you deserve better.
You deserve better, and yeah, exactly. And
you're right. That's the Wild Wild West ending of this film.
It is, yeah.
The low point where if you stop it there, everything ends really badly.
Exactly, yeah. That I don't know how, because it cuts to full old angry face Arnie, and then something happens to sweep him away from that situation.
The bike cop shows up again.
The bike cop shows up again, and that's how he ends up in the Turbo Man costume.
There's a bit of a chase, isn't there, through the school buses and shit. And then the ending is the ending where it's just like, he has to do the Turbo Man stuff, and then he has to do the fight, and then he has to kind of fight Myron, but then he has to save the kid.
It's all
somehow the costume is functional.
The costume is completely functional, and that's all very Power Rangers. Like when like
all the little people, what they called the like Six Squad or whatever.
Yeah, they're like putties. They were
yeah. They basically come out and it's full. It is very Power Rangers,
which makes sense.
Did you know it's actually complete random aside? You know the Turbo Man TV show you see at the start seems to be filmed at Vasquez Rocks.
Oh,
so it's very
really?
Star Trek.
Oh,
you know when he's on the top and he's going to drop the president's son off the thing.
Yeah.
It's the outcrop at Vasquez Rocks, and
The
you just
corn
kind
in
of
the
like, yeah, of
background.
course it would be filmed there because
Where else would you film it? Yeah, it makes sense.
where else would you film it? That's exactly what you're going for, the tonally. That's again, I think this film is a lot cleverer than we
I think you're right.
are giving, or that anyone gave it credit for a long time, because it knows what it's doing, and I
So
think it's laying it on very, very thick.
obviously, Turbo Man is a made up superhero just for the movie.
Yeah, but they made the toys.
But
Actually,
did they actually make it interesting? Okay, I don't remember that. But he seems to have he seems to be like an Iron Man almost. Like all of his powers kind of come from his suit. Doesn't have superpowers.
there's weirdly actually just on that. There's a lot of Marvel stuff in the background. If you look,
I did notice that. Yes,
it's weird because this is right in the period where maybe they had to deal with Toy Biz, who owned Marvel for a brief while.
Okay, maybe.
But there's a lot of Marvel shit in this film.
Yeah,
like
I did notice
the
that,
kids'
yeah.
wall and the kids' dress
Mm-hmm.
and the bedclothes and things. Like, and then in the shops, there's a lot of Marvel toys.
Yeah.
And it's like they must have had a deal somewhere along the line to what they could showcase. And there's a huge
it's not
amount
front
of
and
Marvel
center,
stuff.
but you're right. It's very much present in the background. But we Turbo Man at this point is very kind of loosely defined. The kid clearly loves him. We've seen that little clip of the show, as you say, and he's got like a jetpack. He's got the mega discs or whatever.
Yeah. What you call it? The boomerang
thing. Exactly. Yeah. And so all of those elements come in. I want to ask you a question. How did you feel about so the set before I ask you this question? The setup is he picks a kid out of the crowd, like you said, picks his own kid, gives him somehow the kid doesn't recognize him. Call it the Clark Kent
the fact
effect.
the kid doesn't recognize his own dad is, I love it.
Gives him the toy, and then Myron comes and tries to take the toy off of him. The fight ensues. Kid ends up running off and climbing a building. He scales a building by going up a fire escape, and then
everyone thinks it's part of the show.
A Christmas tree display on top of the building, which inevitably collapses. And then Arnie has to use the jetpack function to go and save him. How did you feel about that entire sequence? Like the jetpack sequence?
By this point, I'm 100% on the ride.
Okay.
So, like the special effects are kind of crappy.
Oh, they're dreadful. Yeah.
Like some of the CGI on the like jet elements is pretty good for the time.
Yeah, it's decent,
like when he's flying through the air, it's worse than RoboCop.
Oh, like, it absolutely is. Yeah, it looks like stop motion.
It's not great, but by that point, it's like whatever this film does, I'm on the ride, so I'm loving it.
I'm glad you said that, because it was like it was one of those moments where I'm like, this is really shit, but I'm all about it.
But it doesn't matter. Before that, I thought you were going to ask something else, so I'm going to throw one back at you.
Okay.
You know when him and Myron have the fight before the kids runs off
on the float,
before he kicks him in the nuts?
Yeah.
And he does the thing from the TV show where Dementor, I think his name is, he throws his own fist
and then it comes back to him. Yeah.
And it comes back and then it's a hand again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
his fist.
But it's his fist.
Yeah.
Like in the TV show, you could get away with that. Somehow in the real world, Myron projects his own fist.
Dislocates from his arm.
Dislocates his own fist, throws it in Arnie's face, and then brings it back and then just does this. Like clenches his own fist.
Well, I think he even comments on it. He goes, "That was pretty cool," or something like that.
Yeah, does he? Yeah. Okay. It just doesn't like. It's like at this point, if you're not with it, you're never going to be with it.
Yeah.
And I just kind of adore the fact that the film at this point just kind of goes, "Fuck it, right? Yeah. We set this thing up. We're actually going to do it here." Like the discs don't make sense because they would kill people in the crowd.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, they were deflecting all over the place, and like a couple of them missed, and it's like people in the crowd are dead if these things.
Yeah,
sorry, I've got to go back to before this, because obviously the people who put him in the suit are expecting a stand-in, because they make a very dark comment where they say that you're staying for Phil or whatever it is, and it's like, oh, good news, the doctor said he had brain activity this morning.
And then the guy's like, like that, he puts his thumb up and he's looking at the camera like, it's a good sign or whatever. And it's the same with the Chris Parnell thing in the shot.
That's true. Yeah.
Like this is all about being over the top at this point,
right? Like,
yes, maybe the Chris Parnell thing is too much too soon, but by that point in the film, it's just like, if you haven't figured out what this is, then it's just.
I think it's earned it by that point, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're pretty right. But it just, if you get what it's doing very early on, then the Chris Parnell thing's fine.
Oh, another element of that whole parade thing is the like local TV personality commentators. Did you notice what the name of the weatherman was?
Oh, it's really good, but I can't remember what it is.
Gale Force.
Gale Force. There you go.
Which I think is brilliant.
Again, if you're not with it, you're never going to be with it. If you don't get what it's doing at this point. But yeah, so, and then the film, ends with the boys saved, Arnie's flying around the thing, the costume fully works. Dementor is both taken away by the cops, but also the son gives him the toy for his own son.
Yes.
So it all ends kind of quite well for everyone. For some reason, Rita Wilson just hand waves it all away because Arnie looks really good in this.
Yep, that's my husband. Yeah.
Yeah, like she's totally like, ooh, like
Yeah.
as if she's never seen him naked and he's the, Mr. Olympia or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just literally fade to black, don't we? With all the crowd raising him up on their shoulders.
Well, there's a very schmaltzy moment where this is where I thought, and I want to talk about this. This is where I thought that the character actually had a measure of genuine redemption, where it's almost like he's actually appreciating, because he's like, I love you. Oh, I love you. It's like really over the top. And I was like, okay, I feel like he is actually feeling it right now. But you have an alternate theory. What were you?
Well, what happens next? I think their marriage still ends. Like, even you get that like post credits where he's putting the tree. They do that weird thing where it's like he has to put the star on the tree.
Yes. Oh, that's true.
And they do that, and it's Christmas, and like, what did you get me for Christmas type thing. But he didn't get his wife anything.
Didn't get his wife anything. No.
I think the marriage still ends because he's a giant piece of shit.
I think you're probably right.
And I think that's the conversation has made me think this is a lot darker than it's presented as, and that's the real dark ending.
But Phil Hartman still doesn't win.
Phil Hartman doesn't win.
No one wins.
No one wins. That's the thing. Everybody loses.
Is Jingle All the Way 2 just like an extended alimony agreement meeting?
God knows. I mean, I kind of want to look, but it's clearly disconnected, right? But if it's got any level of this satire to it, I think it's probably brilliant.
With Larry the Cable Guy being involved, it really depends which of his ends he's playing. Whether he's just kind of playing the character that gets all the rednecks in seats, or whether he's leaning into the satire of the character, which it is. Because the whole Larry the Cable Guy character is satire. It just happens to be that it's like Alf garneted itself in that the people who he's actually parodying at the ones who are attracted to it.
Yeah, thin line between irony and sincerity.
Exactly, yeah.
Homer Simpson in the 90s plus 20 years.
Right, yeah.
Just plays as sincere now.
Yeah.
Fascinating point. Also, 2014, I assumed it was more recent streaming movie.
Yeah.
So if it's 2014, I don't know what the outlet for that even was.
No, is it Red Box?
Unless it was TV. Yeah, it's a DVD movie, right?
Yeah, it's got to be.
Fucked. I might go down that.
You've got to be fucking kidding me.
Go on.
Jingle All the Way 2. Over 18 years after the release of the original film, a standalone sequel, Jingle All the Way 2, was released straight to DVD in December 2014. Directed by Alex Zam and produced by WWE Studios.
Holy shit. Okay.
And 20th Century Fox. The film has a similar plot to the original, but otherwise not connected, and has none of the original characters or cast.
Which one of their terrible stars of the time did they put in it?
A very fine question.
Titus O'Neil.
Oh, please keep guessing.
It's
a good one. It's a good one.
Who have they got? Yoshi Tatsu.
Look at me. Look at me.
Santino Marella?
Santino Marella.
Oh, wow. Okay, maybe I will watch it.
Oh, God.
Santino was in it? That's so weird, because that was like around the time they did a Leprechaun sequel too. WWE did a Leprechaun sequel. Or I think it was a Leprechaun reboot by rights. But they had that weird relationship with, I forget what the studio was, where they did a bunch of like really dogshit movies, but they didn't even put stars in them.
Did they not? Okay.
It was just whoever was around at that point. Like they did like that Halle Berry movie, The Call, and it was I think that might have been Titus O'Neil. They just had one of their guys in there as just a part, like a background role as a cop.
Fascinating.
And it was like just a legitimate movie.
But they didn't use it as a staging ground for one of their guys, which seems to be...
not in the same way they they tried to do the Kindergarten Cop knockoff with Triple H or whatever. It was just, I think it was Fox actually, and Fox made this obviously. So I think it was like a Fox 2000 or Searchlight or someone they had that relationship with, and they kind of co-funded a bunch of their movies and put people in them that were just like, they were just nothing films that were going to happen anyway, and they just made up the budget. So crazy. Santino Marella as well. You know, he owns his own name now. He owns Santino.
Oh, does he
Marella.
really? So he could go somewhere else and do the character.
Well, he's in TNA doing the character.
Oh, is he really? Good for him.
Final thoughts. What do you think? What do you, in terms of it being something I kind of told you to revisit?
Yeah.
based off the last couple of years where I've fallen for it in a huge way. What do you make of it now after watching it for the first time in 20 years?
It's great. It's really, really enjoyable. I honestly, like I said at the start, I don't know if I've seen it since maybe I watched a version of it that was on TV in the early 2000s, probably. Where it's just like, it's on, I'll watch it. And I probably didn't pay enough attention to it to see any of this detail, or probably wasn't developed enough as a person to see it in this level of detail. But I feel like this will enter my rotation now, and I kind of want to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I just smile from start to finish.
Yeah. No, it's the same here. There were moments throughout the film where I was just like, this is great. I don't think that Christmas movies like this exist anymore.
Do you know how many people were in that screening I went to on Friday night?
Oh no, how many?
2. Me and one other guy who fell asleep.
Oh no. So chances are it might not end up on the big screen again anytime soon.
More evidence. I don't think it's quite at this moment.
And you mentioned you found some criticism of it online.
Yeah, I looked at some comments and stuff because I was looking for specific scenes. I wanted to make an avatar out of the bit where he looks through that domed thing in the playground, where he's just like, and he looks through that like dome thing and he pulls a goggle eye face.
Yeah,
I wanted that frame as a WhatsApp profile picture.
Nice.
And so I went through a few things. I found one of those cinema sins, where they do everything wrong with or whatever.
Okay.
And I find those quite bad natured anyway. But
it just seems like a cynical concept from start to finish.
Yeah, and they ripped it apart on all the things that I like about it. And then all the people in the comments were the same. And then on other videos where I looked at the original trailer, like I said, and stuff like that. And it just feels like some people get it and some people don't.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
And it just kind of blew me away, actually, that there's a lot of people who just think it's a crap surface level slapstick family film. And they don't see what it's actually
doing. There's undoubtedly a layer of satire in there that's very significant.
Yeah, and I just think it might become one of those things where unless it has its moment, like its reevaluation or whatever, it'll become one of those films where you can be like, you can divide your friends and enemies.
You're probably right, yeah.
You can be like, what do you think of Jingle All the Way? Is it brilliant or is it crap?
Yep.
And I think it's probably in my top 5 Arnie movies now.
Okay, I love it.
And it's certainly the one like that and Running Man are probably the ones I will watch the most because they are so silly in their own way. And again, Running Man has got a huge amount of media satire, TV satire.
Oh, massive. Yeah, absolutely.
And is more relevant the more time's gone on in terms of game shows.
Oh, absolutely. And not just that. I mean, it's like it's foreshadowing of like a society that is brutal and really deeply unpleasant, like the fact that it's a state-sanctioned manner of execution or punishment of criminal justice.
Presented as entertainment.
It's like bread and circuses. It's there's a lot of amazing social commentary in that film. It's another one of those films that, like, I think you're right. You could probably divide your enemies with that and be like, "What do you think of The Running Man?" And be like, "I love the bit where he got a chainsaw." And
the guy's got a chainsaw in the dick.
Exactly. He's going to get electrocuted in the dick. And he's like, "Oh, okay, all right."
And it's all there's so much presentation in that. When like Jesse Ventura's like a leftover, what do they call them? They're called runners and like predators or something, aren't they? Not predators, obviously, but anyway. But Jesse Ventura is like a retired one, isn't he? And they're going to put him back into service, but they want to like gimmick him up with that like metal arm and stuff. He's like, "I'm not wearing this crap."
Yeah.
So, and it's just like there's so much about presentation and like there's a lot in Running Man that was like, very, very formative, I think, in my sort of understanding of how media works.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big fan of Running Man.
That's great.
Total Recall, obviously. This, I think, is in there. What rounds out the top 5? I've said it's top 5. What rounds out the top 5? Terminator, first one.
Stalkers. That's what they're called.
Stalkers, thank you. They're called Stalkers. What else have we got in the Arnie thing? I've got 4.
Okay, so I really like The Sixth Day, but I recognize it's a bit shit.
Adam Gibson.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not on my list. I mean, I like End of Days just because it's another fucking Exorcist knockoff.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's not top 5. T2, like, I respect more than I like.
True Lies actually might fit in that.
True Lies.
I love True Lies.
There you go. There's your top 5.
Yeah.
or at least mine. Running Man, True Lies. No order to this, folks. Running Man, True Lies, Jingle All the Way, Terminator,
End of Days.
whatever I just said.
End of Days?
No, not End
No.
of Days. Fuck, I've completely lost track. Hang on a minute. Wait, what have I just said? Total Recall.
Total Recall. Duh, of course, yeah.
Let me try this again. Top 5. No order. Running Man, Jingle All the Way, Terminator. Fucking
10%.
Oh, I'm so falling asleep on this. It's crazy. Let me try this one last time. Top 5 Arnie films: Total Recall, Jingle All the Way, Running Man, First Terminator, True Lies.
Love it. Yeah, I would concur. I would concur.
Cool. Okay, and our next film was?
Our next film was Love Actually, which I had never seen. Unlike Jingle All the Way, where I saw it when it came out and maybe once or twice in between. We actually kind of discussed this. When it came out, it was 2004, I believe, was when it came out. And that would have made me 20. And I think I was probably in a period of my life where I was like, no, fuck that mainstream bullshit. And I was just kind of in my own mind too cool for it. I wasn't too cool for it because I've never been too cool for anything. But it was one of those things where I avoided it because, you know, all the 40-year-olds were going to see it like Mamma Mia a few years later.
Yeah, fair point. And we've already had this feels like, actually, I'll tell you what it feels like. It's the conclusion of a trilogy, isn't it? Which starts with Four Weddings, runs through Notting Hill, and then you get Love Actually.
Yeah, I'd conflated Notting Hill with this a little bit because I honestly thought, you know, the scene where Egg is with the Christmas carolers and he's and the signs like confessing his love to Keira Knightley. I thought that was in Notting Hill.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And you thought it was Hugh Grant?
I had no idea.
Okay.
I thought it was someone in Notting Hill at a door.
Someone in Notting Hill.
Again, another film I haven't seen. Most of that Richard Curtis stuff has passed me by entirely.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, but that's the thing, isn't it? Like, when I was young, certainly, and you might have a little bit of the same, Blackadder, it's Ben Out and Richard Curtis, and so he's edgy and cool, and then he becomes this kind of mainstream, like, Four Weddings type guy, which has a bit of bite to it. But it, you know, you think about it as being a kind of for everyone else.
It was so big, you know. It was very, very mainstream. Whereas Blackadder, it seemed much more counterculture, and especially as you know, I think age probably had something to do with it as well. And that, you know, by the time when was Four Weddings? Was that like 97, 98 or something like that?
No, I think earlier, right?
Earlier?
I think it's more like 95, 96.
Okay, so I was the wrong age for it. I was like 11, if it was that early.
I remember
94. I was 10, motherfucker.
As early as that. Yeah. Okay, I remember Notting Hill must have been about It must have been 99 because I worked it. I remember getting tickets for people to see it that wanted to see it. And
the only one of his films that I saw was Bean. The Mr. Bean movie.
He didn't direct that though, because
no, he wrote it.
Directed, right?
Wrote and exec produced.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because he's.
Did he direct Four Weddings?
Did he direct Four Weddings? No, he didn't. Right? Yeah, because oh Christ! Hang on a minute. If you give me a sec, I can tell you who directed those. You're right. Because is Love Actually his first director?
According to his filmography, yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get, you know, obviously we're both big fans of About Time for all of its devastating value.
I adore that film.
And Yesterday's pretty good, and he has become one of these guys who can fucking do it all, as it turns out, because he's hugely talented. But you're right. Roger Michell did Notting Hill?
Yes.
And Four Weddings is...
Big name. It's a big name.
It is a big name. Now you just think of it as a Richard Curtis movie.
You do, yeah, definitely. Even I, as someone who hasn't... I'm pretty sure I've seen Four Weddings at this point, but who at the time was definitely too young for it to appeal to me. Even I think of it as a Richard Curtis film.
Tell me who it is, because I'm losing it. I can't think. Yes, of course. Yes. Okay. But yeah, you've got the. I mean, it does complete a trilogy of that, but yeah, it's his first one. And just to put it in here for the sake of folks, it is a kind of multi-story,
Like an ensemble film.
ensemble film. It's a multi-romance sort of story leading up to Christmas in 2003 or 4.
Yeah.
And so you get all these different kind of short tales of romance and stuff.
Feels like an anthology in many ways, because
Yes.
the stories are quite disconnected from one another.
But they all have weird linkages. Someone must have made them map, right, of how they all interconnect.
And I think that some feel more disconnected than others.
Yes.
Actually,
they have really, really slim connections that you don't notice for ages.
The Colin Firth story in particular feels very tenuous, because not only is it disconnected by the fact that it's in a completely different country for the majority of it. You know, he's clearly, like, I don't think they ever really stated out loud, and if they do, I missed it. He's clearly some like tortured, struggling writer living in France, rural France, falls in love with his housekeeper, essentially.
Yeah.
And doesn't seem to have a connection. Is there a scene where he calls someone and we see?
No, he's at the wedding.
He's at the wedding. Okay.
He sat next to Laura Linney at the wedding. I don't know if he's supposed to know Laura Linney, but he definitely knows either Chiwetel Ejiofor or Keira Knightley. Or, well, I mean, it's not Egg's wedding, right? It's just
it's true. Yeah.
But yeah, you've got all these.
Should I explain the egg thing?
The egg? No, it's not.
Okay, all right, okay.
I love that you're going with Egg, not any of the other potential.
That is who he is to me, because I know he's been in lots of stuff since then, but he's still Egg to me. That's where I first know him from.
Do you want to pull up that? Do you want to work through this in terms of couple stories and pull up that listing that I sent you for the top 10?
Yes.
What I would like to get quickly is so it's all interconnected stories, loosely interconnected stories, different romances, different people from different walks of life, all culminating towards different kinds of love in the run up to Christmas. What did you make of it as someone who has not seen it before?
In terms of like its presentation of romance, what
were your first impressions? What would have been in that hot take voice note if you'd sent it to me?
Okay, I enjoyed the film as a whole. My main criticisms of it were that it felt a little bit like an excuse to, I sent you that the one thing that I sent you while I was watching it was how loaded it was in the first 2 minutes with celebrities of that era, and some people who have continued to be celebrities and very much in the spotlight, and others who faded away slightly. It felt a little bit like okay, we've got all these stars who have agreed to be in this movie. We're just going to throw them all in your face. But as the movie went on, I minded that less and less. And actually quite enjoyed the presentation of all of these different forms of love between people in different stages of life and relationships. I actually thought it was quite profound in the way it didn't, like, not everything at the end was the instinct with a movie like this is, because you've got these disparate stories, the instinct is not only to bring them together, but also to tie them all up in a neat bow and resolve any kind of conflict. And I thought it was really brave that they didn't do that with all of the stories. Yeah. Particularly Rickman and Emma Thompson. So just to kind of do a very quick summary of their story. They're a married couple. They've got a son. And
they've got 2 kids. They've got
2 kids, son and a daughter. Okay. So married couple with kids. He's some kind of executive, it seems.
Yeah, like some kind of print firm, magazine.
Yeah,
maybe.
That sounds right. So yeah, he's and one of his employees is like going after him hard. Like really, she's got a daddy thing about him, and clearly
she's the Phil Hartman of this story.
Exactly. She wants her some. I was going to say Dickman from the Rickman, but I don't really want to say it. They've said that.
Oh shit! No, I'm leaving that.
Okay.
She wants some Dickman from the Rickman. She says at some point she wants something. She doesn't want. What does she say? She doesn't want something she needs. She wants something she wants.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the crux with her, is just like, he's unattainable, and that's interesting.
Exactly, yeah. It's all about the pursuit. It's all about the pursuit, and as soon as she gets it, she'll drop it.
She's not really interested. It's forbidden fruit. So.
But he doesn't his presentation of going through that is really interesting, because it's not like he overtly gives into all of that positive attention that's coming from this beautiful younger woman who's clearly, making no bones, no pun, about being into him. There's some internal conflict, and it's all very tight and kind of held on to, and he doesn't really say it out loud, but his actions are speaking for it. So there's a moment where he meets Emma Thompson, and they go to like a department store, and this is one of like two weird appearances from Rowan Atkinson in the film, where he seems like the specter of Love Actually, and he's buying some jewelry, and you kind of assume that he's buying it for the office woman. But in my mind, I kind of read it as because he gets busted. There's a whole elaborate scene where Rowan Atkinson's gift wrapping it, and he puts like a sprig of rosemary in there or something, whatever it is, holly and all sorts of stuff.
What's that? A cinnamon stick. I don't want a bloody sprig of holly on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Rickman's accent in this,
that's amazing.
I adore Rickman.
I think it's just him, which I love.
Yeah.
And then Emma Thompson comes up. He's trying to rush him because he wants to get it before Emma Thompson comes back. Emma Thompson captures him in the act of buying it, but kind of semi-assumes that it's for him. But she's got suspicions at this point, right? Or does she?
The Christmas party hasn't happened yet.
Has it not?
So no.
Okay.
So I don't think she does have... she catches him around the jewelry, and she's like, nah, that's after 12 years of marriage or whatever. I'm not expecting that much. So no, I don't think she has at this point really got suspicions. And then after the party, she's like, "Thing's pretty, isn't she?"
Yeah. But she finds a box that looks like the box that the necklace is in. It's like a necklace that he's buying in his coat pocket.
That's later.
That's later.
She finds the necklace and sees the necklace,
and then
there's a similar thing under the tree.
Yeah,
it's also
same shape.
I mean, just to break out story for a second, it's the fucking ugliest thing ever.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's as ugly as the ring in Twilight. It's really bad.
It really is. It's vile.
And she finds it, and then she thinks it's under the tree, and she's like, "Oh my god!" And then it all comes crashing down because she knows.
And I quite like that tension that it presented, because it kind of made me think. The intention seemed to be behind that seemed to be, well, has he had second thoughts? Has he realized that, okay, I need to treasure what I've got, and he has wrapped it up and decided to give it to her instead of the chick at the office?
Oh wow, okay, you're giving him way more credit than I do.
Okay.
I mean, I have a joke about Love Actually, about it being a true Christmas miracle, because it makes you believe that all these people aren't absolute monsters.
Okay.
And that's the miracle of Christmas, because almost everyone in this is an atrocious human being. There's
Egg is dreadful.
Egg is dreadful. Yeah. He's after his girlfriend. He's after his best mate's wife.
Right.
And
kind of like that doesn't get. It's another thing that doesn't get resolved, because there's, just to jump forward, there's the scene where there's clearly tension between them, and one of his friends or her friends actually says to him at the wedding, like, "Are you in love with him? Like,
are you in love with him?" Now that's Laura Linney.
Is it Laura Linney who asked that? Okay. Yeah.
Because she's pointing the camera at him. He's just sat there watching them dance, but he's clearly filming her later on.
Right, yeah. And
are you in love with him?
Exactly. And something happens with the footage from the wedding, and so she wants to repair this relationship, because he's very, very close friends with the groom, he's
the best man.
He's the best man, exactly. So
he's a monster.
Yeah, he is a monster. You're right. But he's clearly very cold with her, and so she's trying to get the footage from him, and and
he describes it as self-preservation, and it's played as noble.
Yes,
which
he says at the end almost. He says it's self-preservation, doesn't he? But at that,
yes, he does.
But at that point, he's just being a fucking asshole to her.
Yeah. And also the way he describes it is like, "I will love you until you look like this," and it's just like an old dead woman.
It's like a zombie. Yeah,
I get what the message is meant to be, but you haven't quite nailed it. But then they end it quite well. The only moment I really, really like in that story is when he walks away and he goes, "Okay, enough."
Yeah,
and he's just like had that moment with himself.
But
it's still like he's still a monster.
But does that happens? So because I was just going to describe that scene. That whole scene is he shows up at the door, like puts his finger to his lips. He's got a little silver boombox which he plays carols on, and then he's got a bunch of signs that he holds up and confesses.
He does the who was it famously did it?
Gil Scott-Heron?
Bob Dylan. Oh, I don't know actually. Bob Dylan, I thought, but anyway,
maybe
he does the like things on boards,
on cards, exactly. Yeah, which
Yeah.
he seems to drop all of them, but then he's got them in a neat pile all of a sudden right at the end. Anyway,
he certainly takes them away. Yeah. What was his backup plan if
Chip will have answered the door? Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but then she chases after him and gives him a kiss. Does that happen before or afterwards? After he says enough?
That's the moment just before. He then walks away and he says enough. Okay. That's enough.
Because it still doesn't feel resolved to me.
No, but
from his perspective,
the end of that story.
It is. The only time I think you see them again is at the airport at the end.
Are they at the airport?
Yeah,
what's their moment?
They are greeting Colin Firth coming back.
They're greeting Colin Firth. So there's a connection there, is there?
Yeah, because he's at the wedding, isn't he? So yeah.
He's at the wedding, but I can't remember why they're at the airport. And I forget. No, aren't they? They're coming back through the airport as well, right?
Oh, are they?
I think suddenly, yeah, I think they're coming through the airport, and isn't he there to greet them or something?
I thought he was
because the idea is their honeymoon, but I think they're supposed to have already had that.
Oh, maybe, yeah, but I definitely feel like because he's pushing like an airport trolley type thing, and he comes back and they're there, and then for some reason Martin Freeman's there as well with his. And that's another story that feels very disconnected. Is that the two stand-ins? I quite like that story actually because
that's one of the few where they're
not monsters. No, it's actually very pure and it's quite a cute story.
Yeah, it's weirdly sexual, but because they're making like a sexy film and they're like you say they're set stand-ins, aren't they?
That's actually it's never spoken out loud, but it just kind of occurred to me after their first date. You know, and he's very shyly asks her out on a date as well, which is really sweet. But after the first date, standing at the door, and he's like hesitating, giving her a kiss. And by this point, he's like pretended to fuck her from behind and held her breasts in his hand. Mm. So it's like, okay, you're nervous to kiss her, but you've already, and of course that's because that's work, and it's just it means nothing, which I thought was quite nice.
That's why it's one of the few that is like, oh, that's okay.
Yes, exactly.
Like that one I'll give you. Emma Thompson in this thing is just wonderful and on her own, and is the one who's like
pure victim,
pure victim. Yeah. And then I think everyone else to a person is monsters one way or another, and that's where it like the fact that it works is just fucking amazing to me because like Colin Frizzell with his like I'm going to go to America and bang women like
I couldn't remember that guy's name, but was it My Family that kid was in?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, and I feel like I've seen his face in something my mom and also my grandmother watched more recently.
Did he end up in like Death in Paradise or one of those?
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Okay, right. Yeah, I was thinking it was the way I described it when I made that recording for you that we're not going to use was it's.
Please send it to me after this.
Okay, it was. I think I described it as the white savior cop show with Arlo Hanlon.
Okay, there you go.
Which I've seen like half an episode of maybe when I visited, but anyway, I want to talk about that whole thing. So he's a waiter at the wedding at first, right?
Yeah, he just seems to be working for a company that delivers food to different things because he can show up wherever he's needed. He's dropping sandwiches off at Rickman's office, then he's catering a wedding, then whatever.
And he randomly insults the food to the chef.
Yeah.
While he's kind of trying to go after, that's like setting up the next phase where he's got his friend and he talks to his friend about how
his friend is who's the first AD on the movie set. That's one of those weird little small linkages.
You're right.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily first AD, but whatever.
Yeah, he's crew on the movie set. Yeah. And he says, I could have much more success if I went to America. And he's talking, and he's on this wild fantasy. And this is a moment where. So let's follow that story to its conclusion, because he actually does it.
Yeah.
And that whole sequence.
Wait, doesn't he go to Minnesota?
He goes to Wisconsin.
Oh, he goes to Wisconsin.
Yeah, which is only one state over. They're basically the same place.
Imagine if it had been Minnesota.
That would have been amazing. Yeah.
Podcast.
Ended up at a restaurant in the Mall of America. So, but like he's describing this fantasy situation, which seems so outlandish. And for a moment, I was like, "Oh fuck, this hits a bit close to home," because he's talking about how like all the women love the British accent, and I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, there's some truth in that, but he's over egging it seriously. and clearly has very unrealistic expectations. Those expectations get confirmed. They don't get subverted. They don't get so he flies to Wisconsin, asks a cabbie to take him to a bar. The second he sits down and orders a Bud Light, a gorgeous woman starts talking to him, and then he ends up in at least a foursome, because there's three of them and one of him back at there. And I honestly thought at that point, is this movie going to take a dark turn? And
Hostile or whatever.
No, I thought it was going to be worse than that. Well, not worse than that, but different than that. I thought we might cut to, like, okay, he's made that decision. He was on the way to the airport in a cab, and the cab got fucking peacemakered, and this is a coma dream.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's not that film.
No, it's not that film exactly. Yeah. And,
also, peacemakered. I appreciate that.
Okay. Because it seemed that's where this movie turns into a cartoon. That whole sequence in Wisconsin is it's ludicrous, utterly ludicrous.
From the bit at the airport where he yells, "And he's got a big knob," and no one reacts. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, he's like standing in security, right?
Yeah, look out, America! Here comes Colin Frizzell, and he's got a big knob.
So, but then I mean that fantasy follows him back from the States as well, because he arrives in the airport with Shannon Elizabeth, who's oddly got a weird voice. I don't know if it's even her voice, because she
it is her voice, but she's over-egging.
Well,
crazy.
she's almost doing a British accent, weirdly enough, because she says Carla, but she says Carla in a kind of a British way.
But she's trying to do like almost like Texan or something.
It's not good,
isn't it?
It's
a real mess.
And then Carla comes out as Denise Richards.
Right?
Yeah.
Why would Denise Richards be walking behind them at that point? That's the thing that always bothers me.
That's why it feels so cartoony. It feels so cartoony. That whole thread feels just like, it almost feels like it doesn't belong in the film. Like, not that it's bad. I don't think it's bad. But
it's kind of like, it's degrees of comedy, isn't it? And that one is absurdist.
It is. That's true.
So, but yeah, because of that, I think he's just like a weird fucking monster.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on to our next couple.
Yeah. Okay. So who do you want to move on to next? Are we moving on to Hugh Grant?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
The best Tory Prime Minister we've not had in the last 20 years.
He's the next one. After Rishi, it's going to be huge.
You know what? Given the character he's become in terms of taking on the media and the government, I would adore that, because Hugh Grant's become such a like anti-establishment, not an anti-establishment, anti kind of like media figure. I kind of adore him.
In that 2020 film that they did, the Charlie Brooker thing, he almost played like a parody of like an arch Tory peer in that. It's kind of what he seemed like, and he leaned very hard into being just this utter shit, and it made me kind of think, oh, I think I probably like you.
I'm quite a fan of him these days. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was I
was shocked at how young he looked in this.
And even then he looks like slightly worn, if that makes sense. Pardon me. But yeah, he's clearly a Tory. It's like the Blair, they've just had an election, Blairs have lost. Mm-hmm. I think that's what they're alluding to.
Yep, that's what it seems like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's a Tory because he's like, he does that like sexy minx thing to the portrait of Thatcher at one point.
Oh, he does. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But he's almost redeemable, other than being a Tory. No offense to anyone who's listening to this. But the problem with that story is the way it treats Martin McCutcheon and constantly calls her fat.
I hated that. Like, even her family calls her like Pudgy or whatever, or Porky or whatever.
Plumpy.
Plumpy, that's it. Yeah.
The aide calls her like fat.
The chubby girl. It's like
the chubby girl. That's it. Yeah.
And
he's all just like, oh,
fine.
Are we calling her that?
Yeah.
But he's almost redeemable.
He is.
But basically, yes. But it's clearly alluded to that he's a bad uncle and brother, isn't he? Because he's Emma Thompson's
brother. Yeah, and that's actually, because I did wonder halfway through the film, like, how are they going to bring all of this together? And that the Christmas pageant scene seems to be their attempt at doing that for most of them. Still not all,
yes,
but for most of them.
And you get the airport as a kind of code of
yes.
it. Yeah, the Christmas pageant thing is very much it. But he's not there because he's been invited, but although he's clearly been invited.
No, so let's talk about the setup for that. So their whole, again, let's do a quick version of their whole story. He arrives at number 10. He's introduced to the staff, and Martine McCutcheon is one of the staff. Again, she's one of those people who is probably coming off the back of a very successful run in EastEnders, who was probably and
and a pop career. Remember, she did some
she's had a pop
songs.
career at that point. She was pretty big. I don't think she's still around, but certainly not at this level now. You know,
I have no idea what she's doing, but yeah.
But so she's clearly the love interest. It's pretty much immediate. Like he's got a little bit of a thing for her.
He walks past, he does the look back, and then you get the, oh, that's inconvenient, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And she says like shit, and she says like, I wouldn't say fuck on my first day, or something like that.
Yeah,
It's a cute little bit, you know.
It's cute. That story's cute, but it's wildly problematic.
Extremely so. Just that, I mean, the power differential alone is it's got, you know, undertones of Monica Lewinsky and shit, you know. So
well, it's also later on where
but he's like a bachelor prime minister as well.
He's a bachelor prime minister, which is alluded to heavily. Yeah. But there's also the bit later on where Emma Thompson's like, "You would have been just his type 20 years ago."
Yeah, 20 years ago. That seemed wrong. Like the timing.
It is so wrong.
Wait, so when he was 19 and she was 12? Wait, what?
I have no idea. But yeah, I love what they're doing there. But yes, it's But yeah, and then there's the Americans come over
Billy
for
Bob
a
Thornton,
state visit.
Yeah, as the president comes over, and he's playing kind of like a slimy Clinton type almost. Because
really, I took it as W.
Oh, really? Well, it's the sexual stuff that made me think it was Clinton, because he's clearly very Lothario-ish, and we're coming right off the back of the Clinton era. You're right, probably politically he's W, but personality-wise, I think they're probably going for a bit more of
That's
Clinton.
A very, very fine point. So he's like Bill W. Clinton.
yeah. I was going to try and make it work the other way around, but now I can't, because I can't think of George Jefferson Clintush.
Oh, Clintush. President Clintush.
So there's a moment, heavily telegraphed moment, where Martin McCutcheon is like helping him out, and it's just them in an office, and Hugh Grant has to go off and grab something, comes back in, and Billy Bob Thornton's made a move. And so that leads to him basically saying, because you're right, earlier on he said that that's going to be, was it complicated or something like that, or a challenge or
inconvenient? I believe he literally says that's
inconvenient. And so he's like, can she be repositioned or something like that? Or,
he tries to, he gets her staff, because at that point he's a bit butthurt, isn't he? Because he thinks maybe she's got with
maybe she's into it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he also gives that rousing speech with the big music behind it.
Oh, with all the like it felt like they were going to pull out little Union Jacks and start waving them in the press room bit.
We may be a small aisle, but maybe this relationship has been unbalanced, and a friend who bullies us is not a friend at all.
That felt very W era.
Do you know what? This is my biggest problem with this story thread. I think you can drag a direct line from that scene. Tell me if I'm overstretching.
Okay.
Here. This is my cultural take on the prominence of love, actually. From that scene, drag a line all the way to Brexit.
Oh, shit. You probably could. That could have laid some foundations.
That's why I think that little islander kind of like, we're strong, in the face of bigger competition, being bullied by whatever.
And like, I think 22-year-old Rishi watched this and was like, one day.
I think Boris certainly did.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
Boris wants to be Hugh Grant, the best Tory Prime Minister we never had.
Damn.
But that's why I write off this story, because it's as sweet as it kind of gets in a little way. I think it's responsible for Brexit, which sounds so crazy. But
I love it. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't considered that at all, but I love it. So he's repositioned her at this point, and then we kind of go away from that story for a bit. But when we come back, he's kind of, how does he make the decision that he wants to go track her down?
He's given Christmas cards. She's written him a Christmas card that not apologizes, but basically says, "I'm yours." Yeah. I think it literally maybe says, "I'm yours." Right, I was actually always yours. You're Natalie.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the bad end of Wandsworth and has to go
house to house,
the longest street in the entire world. Did you notice the house numbers?
No,
because he starts at number 1, and he kind of goes through, like, he intersects with a couple of other stories.
Yes.
Like he meets Rickman's assistant, and he meets those kids and whatnot. And but the final door he knocks is number 100, so he's done 100 houses
Shit.
by that point. But I love the carol singing bit where the Scottish security guy
singing amazingly well,
baritone Good King Wenceslas.
Yeah.
And I kind of adore that. And the double take that he does at that point where he's like, when he just starts laying out that voice, I think it's amazing.
I like that bit too.
But yeah, so he gets Natalie, and then they go off to the school play, and then they get together, and that's kind of their story, really, isn't it? And they kind of hand wave that away as it's Natalie's old school, and she knows her way around.
Exactly, it's Natalie's old school, but happens to be also the school that Rickman's and Thompson's kid goes to.
Yes, and
there's another one.
Liam Neeson's
I was going to say we haven't talked about Liam Neeson at all yet.
Let's move on to Liam Neeson's story.
So Liam Neeson, this is kind of like how this started almost, in that you talked to me about the Liam Neeson relationship with his son. With his stepson, and why why narratively he's his stepson, which is something I never noticed until I saw it in cinema the other night. But that's you're right, and I think it's almost, I don't know, I think it's almost clumsy editing that leads that to feeling out of place, maybe. Because I feel like where their story starts is clearly Liam Neeson's wife, the kid's biological mom, has died young.
Yeah, very recently,
because we see the funeral. And almost felt like at the funeral, they needed to do a tiny little bit more to establish the fact that there was distance between the kid and Liam Neeson. I think if they'd done that, then you could have played off him correcting, and they probably should have had him correct people with the stepson thing a little bit more, and have the kid maybe not say it, but have the kid a scene where they have like a bust up, and it's like not that it has to be exactly this, but the spirit of that scene would have been, "You're not my real dad."
All right, Mike Stoklasser, rebook this entire film. Why not?
And then Liam Neeson is trying to respect that so he can build the relationship with the kid. That justifies the stepdad correction, because at that point you can say, well, Liam Neeson's character is respecting the kid's decision to him to establish that boundary, but it's completely undercut by the way that they structured it, because he corrects him. He corrects he runs into I forget the actress's, a very gorgeous, like kind of Nordic.
Claudia Schiffer. He mentions
Claudia Schiffer. Okay.
It's actually Claudia Schiffer playing just like someone else's.
All right, so he
just happens to look exactly like Claudia
he
Schiffer.
bumps into her, and immediately there's a connection. But right before that happens, the kid has said, "Thanks, Dad." Like, he's actually said it, like, "I'll be right back, Dad," or something like that. And
do you reckon there's a thread where he's never called him Dad?
I think there might have been, and they cut it for time. And he corrects her after that's just happened, and that's what makes it so jarring, because I feel like that could have been the redemption of like all of this run up to him trying to earn the position of dad. Finally, the kid reflexively calls him dad. That tension is released, and then to have him then correct them as say stepdad just feels like he's saying to the like nah, fuck that kid.
Okay,
that's what it felt like to me.
That's a fair point. I mean, the kid, because there's probably a lot of like stuff left on the cutting room
with a film like this. It's got to be. It's got to be.
But
even though it's over 2 hours.
Yeah, because the kid is in love with a girl who's leaving his school, and that's the love story in that one. It's this like chaste first love kind of thing with the pretty American girl who's going to leave the school immediately after the concert. And
immediately after the concert as well, like gets in the taxi and goes to the airport.
Narrative, I think there's definitely a thread there that whole love he has is actually just a way of coping with his mother's death.
Oh, I think you're probably right. Yeah.
And that's very much left on the table as subtext and stuff. But then it doesn't matter, because you realistically, if you look at it as a 2-hour film, each one of these stories gets less than 20 minutes apart.
True. Well,
so, and you can't do that.
Another point is that the girl's name is the same as his mom's name.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten that. That's a very good point. Yeah.
And I, honestly, so they do the whole scene where Liam Neeson's enabling this behavior and takes him to the airport and helps him.
Okay, how do you think his story ends in the airport?
Liam Neeson's story or the kid?
No, the boy. The boy is doing what?
The boy is doing, well, he's trying to get to Joanna.
Yeah, but what is the realistic? Look at that reported in the Daily Mail.
Oh, he's a terrorist.
He's a
Just 3
terrorist.
years after
Yes, the
9/11.
kid is a
He's
terrorist.
absolutely he's a terrorist. Yeah, but
Yeah, exactly.
well, okay. I want to talk about this scene in a bit more detail because the geography of it troubles me. So this is the second appearance of the specter of Love Actually in the form of Rowan Atkinson, in that they're standing at the check-in desk, but it feels more like that little area that you stand in where you give them your boarding card and you go down the jetway and you get on the plane. That's kind of how I read that setup. And Rowan Atkinson's in like a big trench coat and a hat, and you don't realize it's him for a second.
It's like he's going away on holiday for the Christmas period.
But then he can't find his boarding card, and he turns around and he like gives him a knowing look, like I'm the puppet master of all of these stories. Is what
which is I wish he
so
was in each one of them
unjustified.
somehow.
But then they use that. The kid uses that as distraction to sneak past and get through. But then he sneaks past.
Then he has to go through the metal detectors.
Well, but that's the way the geography of this makes no sense to me, because it kind of feels like he's been asked for a boarding card to get on the plane, which is where you're asked for a boarding card. But then he ends up in security, and he has to.
And then he's got to race all the way to an actual gate.
Exactly, and then he runs all the way through the airport, being chased, and ends up. I always forget that. US airports are kind of laid out differently than British airports, and that you have kind of like a pen almost at British airports where you line up outside and then you end up going into like those glass holding pens, and then you get put on the plane. You don't really have that layer here. It's just like everything's very open plan. But he gets in there and he's like banging on the glass, and she can't hear him through that. Finally makes it to like right up behind her, and does she? I think it just kind of cuts away when he gets taken away at that point, doesn't it? The security catches him and he gets...
They exchange a few words, I think. And then,
know my name, I think, is when that happens.
Yeah. And then... but you're right. It then cuts to him being brought all the way back to
Liam Neeson. And he just gets
delivered to
Liam Neeson, and they bugger off.
Let go. Yeah, and they bugger off. But then the girl comes back through, which means she's come all the way through.
And missed a plane.
I mean... At this point, and so what's happening with that point?
Yeah.
So let's not. But then at this point, if you're questioning that much, it doesn't matter. But she comes all the way back through the airport just to kiss him goodbye, which she could have done back there. But Liam Neeson has to see it, so narratively it has to happen there. And the fact that they let the kid go after all that is just wild,
bonkers to me. Like,
slap on the wrist, and then they just walk off for tea or whatever.
Yes,
but so that's why that one's like monsters, because the kid's a terrorist.
Yeah, the kid's a terrorist, and Liam Neeson's enabling it.
Yeah, Liam Neeson is stapling his terrorist child. So who's next? Who do you want to go to next?
Who have we got left?
There's loads left. We still got. I've probably got another 30 minutes left.
Oh shit. Okay. Well. Bill Nye.
Okay.
That's how the movie opens. Is with Bill Nye in a recording studio making a Christmas parody version of. Is it Unchained Melody?
No, it's
what is it?
Love is
all around. That's it. Yeah, Christmas is all around. Yeah, and he's like a burnt out ex-heroin addict, rock star who's making dog shit music, just to and like even says it in the.
This is shit.
This is shit, isn't it? And the manager, who again he keeps calling fat. It's a recurring thing in this.
My fat manager.
Yeah. He's just like, it is. But it's like it's going to sell 1 million or whatever.
He's like, solid gold shit.
Solid gold, yeah. And so,
which they, I love that the last couple of years in like supermarkets here, they unironically play Christmas is all around us, because the track exists, right? The track was on So a full version of that song by Nye exists, and now it's just settled into being a thing that is like
kind of amazing.
I was waiting to see whether they did it again this year, and it was on in Tesco last week.
And is it Ramsey Nesbitt, his manager?
It is. No, it's I was going to say it was one of Hale and Pace, but no, you're right. Is it Ramsey Nesbitt or one of Hale and Pace?
No, it is. It's Ramsey Nesbitt.
God damn, yeah, you're right.
God, I hated that show.
Yeah, that's just because we didn't get it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
If you were Scottish, it was probably hilarious.
The old drunk on Ironburn haggis.
Just felt weird and greasy.
It did, yeah. It's probably too young for it as well. So let's follow that thread through. So he's burned out and cynical, and
he's recording a piece of shit song, and then he's out promoting
it. One moment that I really, really liked and made me laugh out loud was where he addressed Declan Donnelly as Ant or Deck.
Yeah, that's right, Ant or Deck. I was hoping that was what you were going to say.
Oh, I love that so much.
I still do that. I'd like Ant or Deck, I will say, and that's from this. Yeah,
and
he goes on Radio Watford
Yes.
and he calls the song a load of old shit.
Promises that if it ends up Christmas #1, that he'll perform it live on Christmas Eve or whatever.
Shows his dick to Parky on TV,
which Parky seems oddly into.
Yeah, he's holding his ass.
He's holding his ass, and he's just kind of looking, and he like says something to the camera. I forget what, but
he says that'll never get to #1. That's what he says. He's like, he's just seen his dick. He's like, that'll never get to #1. Fucking Parkinson.
Oh man.
So yeah, so he obviously his whole story is like it's platonic love with his manager.
Yes, but in that scene where he confesses his love to him, does it feel like he's trying to make it a romantic thing? I couldn't quite tell.
I don't think so. I never took it that way.
Okay.
I took it as like best friends.
All right.
You know, I and then they're like, let's get pissed and watch porn.
Yeah, let's get pissed and watch porn. Yeah, he does say that.
He's got this opportunity to go and do it all again, and he chooses not to. And I kind of like that story. But again, he's a monster.
He's an absolute monster. He really is.
Yeah, because like he goes on TV and he talks about drugs for kids. He swears on the radio.
And then he shows up at the end of the airport with like a 20-year-old.
Oh yeah, he's there. He's coming back through with the Dolly Bird or whatever in the thing or whatever. And the name, like, doesn't he forget her name? Or
no, he doesn't forget her name. That Ramsey Nesbitt misnames her.
Thinks it's another woman that he's like, yeah. So yeah, again, like it's not the worst story, but it's I mean, we'll go through that top 10 quickly at the end. But it's again, they're monsters.
Do we need to talk about Colin Firth in more detail? You know.
The Colin Firth story, a lot of people will argue, is the sweetest, I think. Because it's that like weird, chaste, like
it's so unjustified though.
Yeah, but it's so unjustified. It's entirely justified by a back tattoo, which I find a bit of a problem.
When she strips off and goes to get the pages from in the lake.
Yeah, she's got a back tattoo, and that's enough for Colin Firth, apparently.
Oh, explain that a bit more, because I didn't pick up on that at all. Like, obviously, I noticed.
You didn't see that?
I noticed that he spotted it, but I didn't think it was anything more than, oh, that's kind of sexy.
That seems to be the changeover almost. It's just like, who is this exotic woman? She's got a back tattoo.
Fuck. Okay.
And that to me was always just like, okay, she got a tramp stamp or whatever they used to call it. Like,
It's like, why?
Okay. I mean, she's played as incredibly frumpy, and then suddenly by the end of the film, she's
glamorous.
Like, very not glamorous, but she's certainly not the kind of frumpy big coat.
No, that's true.
She looks a lot older than she is earlier in the film, you know. And but he seems to entirely fall in love with her now. I mean, it's quite sweet because it's quite bumbling.
Yeah, that's true. And there are some sweet moments, like them both trying to learn one another's language. I thought that was a nice touch, and I did really like the fact that his Portuguese subtitles at the end were a bit janky, and her English was janky in return when she spoke. That was fun. But I want to talk about that scene at the end. So. He goes back to
fat sister.
Okay. So he goes back to he drops her off at the airport. They have a moment. I think she kisses him on the cheek, maybe.
Yes.
And then she walks off. He goes back. He has a little car accident, and then goes back to England for Christmas.
I love the needless car accident.
Completely pointless.
But the better thing is when he takes all the presents to his family's house.
Yes.
And then immediately leaves.
Like, I've got to go.
Like, I hate Uncle Jamie or whatever.
What's his name? Yeah, it is Jamie. Yeah, it's like I hate Uncle Jamie too.
Jamie.
And so he shows up at his family's house, and then immediately he's like, I got to go. And that's when they hate Uncle Jamie. And so he runs back to Portugal because that's where Aurelia.
No, bizarrely, it's still in France.
Oh, is it?
Because he goes to Marseille airport. Yeah, because I always thought he went to Portugal. She had gone home to Portugal or something. But no, apparently her family seemed to have the Portuguese restaurant in Marseille.
Okay. But it's weird.
He
goes to the family house.
Yes.
Knocks on the door and in broken Portuguese says he wants to, I'm here to marry your daughter. And that's when, again, this thread of body shaming in this whole movie. Fat sister shows up and be like, I don't know who the fuck he is. What are you talking about?
She early on has alluded to her fat sister.
Oh, actually, I missed that.
And has also said that he's getting fat in Portuguese.
Okay.
It's like you.
Oh, yeah, because she's like, don't eat it all. Yeah.
Don't eat it all. You're getting fat.
Yeah, you're right.
And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't. If you saw my sister, you'd understand why I don't want it.
Yeah.
And then the sister comes out and.
But then,
she's a bit larger.
So like. he talks to the dad and the sister a little bit, and then they say, well, she's at work. So he's like, well, we've got to go to her work. I need to propose to her. Again, feels.
And the whole town goes with
Why does the whole town go with them?
I don't know, but I kind of adore that they do.
It's amazing.
Because the sister starts screaming out. It's like he's going to kidnap. What does he say? This
Buy.
man's here to
He's
buy.
Yeah, it's like my dad's going to
father's
sell
gonna
my
sell.
sister. Yeah.
It's so weird.
It is. It's so. I don't know why the whole town goes with him. So they go to this Portuguese restaurant, presumably in Marseille, I guess, or wherever in France, whatever, outlying town in France that they've got this restaurant in. And he proposes to her in broken Portuguese, and she accepts. And I was just like, why? How is this? I understand there are some very sweet elements to that story, but it feels unearned is the word I would use. And again, this may be a symptom of the fact that, like you said, all of these stories got about 20 minutes. If you did a whole movie, or maybe like there were 3 couples in the whole movie, and you could do 40 minutes on that, maybe it would have felt justified. But at that point, I'm just like, no, don't marry this fucking loser writer. Don't just. he's like, this is a flight of fancy. He's going to be bored of this in a second. Just felt so unearned.
I feel like if you expand any of these to 2 hours, they all fall apart.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
yeah,
they all jingle all the way at the end.
They all jingle all the way. The true Wild Wild West. Yeah, and then who does he meet at the airport when he comes back through?
It's Egg and Chipwell and Keira Knightley.
Oh yeah, it is. You're right. It is.
Yeah.
I've married all your friends are so good looking. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I've met the wrong Englishman or whatever, and it's just like, and you feel like there's a domestic violence incident about that.
Yeah. He's gonna be like, shut up. Yeah.
Shut up, bitch. Or whatever, yeah.
Do you want a visa?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Do you want that visa or not?
I guess it was pre-Brexit, because Hugh Grant hasn't got his way yet.
Hugh Grant hasn't got his way yet. Who actually, just to go back to the Hugh Grant one for a second, for some reason he's flying domestic and comes through customs at the end.
Does he?
Yeah, he comes through.
You're right. And they come through. Yeah.
Martin McCutcheon runs towards him. Why would he be coming through like a domestic arrivals?
The Prime Minister? That makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly. It makes like I said, I kind of adore it, but it makes 0 sense.
Okay. So that's the end of that story, basically. Who do we have left?
Laura Linney
and mysterious European man.
Mysterious European man,
yes,
which is problematic entirely because it's just exoticized, right?
It is.
It's worse than the Rickman one.
It is. Yeah, he's just a piece of eye candy to her, essentially.
The sweet thing there is how she's dealing with the brother. Right?
Exactly. Yeah,
which is nicely done. Whatever that brother's got going on, and the way it kind of stays chaste, doesn't it? Towards the end, like they don't really get together. Yeah, everything that happens there, it's kind of interesting. It's one of the other almost redeemable ones in that respect. But I still have problems with it because it does no service to him as a character.
He's nothing. He's nothing as a character. He's just a foreign piece of eye candy, Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think it does much service to her in terms of like she's clearly just a workaholic,
and she's presented
trying
as
to
very
escape the idea of her brother
as well. Aside from the care that's shown with her brother, like she's and yeah, I think the conclusion to that story seems to be, I don't have time for this. Essentially, I don't have the room in my life because they end up going on a date and they go inside and they're about to get down, and then she keeps getting phone calls from her brother who's...
It's the Christmas party. It happens at the Rickman Company Christmas party.
It does, doesn't it? You're right. And there's like a moment where she's like sitting on the floor next to the bed, and he's behind her, and they both have kind of knowing looks on their faces where they realize this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, and you get the impression that he might just get up and leave.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
And that was the one thing I took away from that. Is just like, he's not necessarily a good guy.
No.
Because it's alluded at the start that he knows that she likes him. Mm. And yes, he might be awkward. They're both awkward. That's fine. But that he might not necessarily be into this other than it's a sure thing.
Yeah.
Because she's been in love with him for so long. And like you say, she's superficial. She's got the brother problems to deal with. She's a workaholic. There's nothing really that good in that one when you start pulling it apart.
You're right, yeah.
So
yeah, aside from
that's-
the care that the fact that she's putting off her own life for the sake of her very troubled brother, who like
Yeah.
tries to
And
attack her
that's-
at one point.
It does. He swings his
Yeah.
arm out, right? And just like, I mean, that's where that one's got an emotional heft to it. And it's, I suppose, the true love in that one is the familial love,
Yes, that's true.
not the lust,
Not the
for
romantic
the
love. Yeah.
European, but it's the brother sister love.
Yeah,
thing.
you're right.
And she says about like they lost her parents after they moved over or whatever, you know. And that's because of that one. It's quite interesting, but again, it's pull it apart, give it 2 hours, and it's probably quite a dark story.
Yes,
you know?
yeah, it's like a Woody Allen movie.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's yeah, that's kind of an interesting one because it's another one that isn't given a ton of service, but it's still pretty significant in the whole scheme of things.
Now the question becomes: have we forgotten anyone?
I mean, I suppose there's Chitwell and Kira, but their story really isn't delved into much. They're a side story from Egg, really.
Egg.
Yeah.
I mean, the story there is Egg and Kira, really, isn't it? I mean, their wedding's quite nice. I do like the "All You Need Is Love" weird musical moment, but yeah, that story is effectively all about Egg's weird lust for his best mate's wife.
Yeah, and
being played as noble.
Yeah,
somehow.
the thing that we didn't talk about was when she comes like trying to mend fences with him, and wants the footage, and he keeps like putting her off and saying, "Oh no, I don't think I have it. I think I recorded it with the tape."
It's over it, yeah.
You know, that sort of stuff, and finally finds it, and she watches it, and it's all shots of her. It's like nothing but her, and that's when the penny drops, and you're like, "Oh, it's not that he hates her. It's not that he's in love with Chitwell. He's actually in love with his best mate's wife."
Yeah,
and he's a complete shit.
Which is, he's a monster.
Yeah.
Turns out he's another monster. Monsters, actually.
Yeah. Monsters, actually. I think that's everyone.
I think that's everyone. Go through the top 10 and see whether you agree with the ranking.
Okay, so 10 is Harry and Mia, which is Rickman and his co-worker.
Yeah.
9,
which I mean doesn't really deserve to be on the list, but okay.
9 is Juliet and Peter and Mark, which is Egg and Keira Knightley and Chitwell. 8 is Jamie and Aurelia, so Colin Firth and I don't know that actress's name.
I don't know her name actually.
Lucia Moniz.
Yeah.
Okay. 7 is Colin and his American Girls.
Yeah.
Dreadful. That should be at number 10. 6 is Harry and Karen, so Rickman and Emma Thompson.
Emma Thompson, yeah, which should just be Emma Thompson.
It really should, really.
Actually, we never finished it, but her final confrontation with him after the school play is hard.
Oh, it really is.
Where she's just like, "What would you do if you were me?" Like she holds it together for so long. There's that scene of her in the bedroom
for the sake of the kids. Oh, it's
is she going to hold it together? Like, how does that story end?
And that's one of those unresolved things that I actually thought was quite a nice filmmaking choice. Because again, that's the sort of thing that you could have had a scene where Rickman is like, "It was always you, baby," you know, like something very schmaltzy to tie it up.
They do the opposite, because you remember what happens at the airport with them, and it's funny because it's a phrase that I find hilarious.
No, what happened at the airport with them?
Rickman is coming back.
Oh, he's coming back from somewhere, isn't he? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and she's there, and he's like, "How are you?" And she goes, "I'm fine. I'm fine."
You're right.
And you're like, "She's not fine.
She's not fine, no.
She's made a decision like to carry on with this, or whatever way you want to take it. My decoding is she is not fine. She has decided to keep this together for the kids, and it is probably the wrong decision.
Yeah, she's going to hold on until the kids are out of the house and then be done.
Yeah. I'm fine. Like, and she's convincing. She's trying to convince.
She's telling herself more than him. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Number 5 is Sarah and Carl, Laura Linney, and apparently Rodrigo Santoro.
Yeah, who is an actor in his own right.
Really?
Well, obviously he's an actor in his own right, but he's in other things.
Okay.
I've seen him in stuff.
Number 4 is Sam and Joanna. It's the kids. Number 3 is David and Natalie, which is Hugh Grant and Martina McCutcheon. Number 2 is John and Judy, which is Martin Freeman and Joanna Page, I guess her name is.
Trying a page from Gavin and Stacey. Yeah. For the record, folks, this is a Radio Times top 10 thing they did last
Thank
year
you.
that I still had open on my phone until recently. Talking of open tabs.
Oh, really? Yes, you did.
I think they're probably as good as it gets in this
I
story,
think you're probably right.
because they're the only real clean skins in any of
That's
this.
true.
They don't other than the overt sexualization stuff,
Which is played more funny than anything else.
It's more funny than anything else, but they get through that and then they make it a thing, even if it has the most awkward, like, all I want for Christmas is you.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Like, what the hell is that scene meant to be?
Yeah.
Like, she had a bonk on the head.
It seemed that way. Yeah. Well, that's a horrible moment. That's true. It's not very well.
Doesn't make any sense.
No, you're right. Yeah.
But then the ultimate winners of this poll are
Billy, Mac, and Joe. So Bill Nye and his manager.
I think I'd swap those two.
I would too. Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I aside from, I would probably push Hugh Grant down a few more places.
Okay.
I think number 3 is a bit much.
It's justifiable to an extent.
But
for all the reasons we've discussed, I am unsure about it.
Yeah. And like, I suppose, yeah, you're right. It is justified in the fact that she genuinely seems to want the relationship, but it doesn't escape from that vast power differential being the
and all the other potential problems there are.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
The reveal's quite
Rickman,
fun. The reveal's quite fun, where they think they've snuck off to a corner in the
backstage.
And the
smile and wave, smile and wave, smile and wave. You know. Not quite as private as we thought then.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
They're in the big finish of the play, and then people just start like taking pictures in the
they do with their flip phones. Yeah,
flip phones and Instamatic cameras and things, which makes me laugh. Rickman is I think by far the worst.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Which is again an achievement in its own right, that it can make me absolutely hate Alan Rickman.
Yes, that's impressive, because we both love him dearly.
Big fan of Rickman.
Yeah.
But then I love Emma Thompson too, and it's just like I don't think you could have cast that any better.
No, she plays that heartbroken, like sympathetic character that isn't tragic in such an amazing way. Because I'd used the word victim to describe her earlier on. She is a victim of Alan Rickman's bad behavior, but the character doesn't play into that. She's not a poor me victim. She's just someone who's been wronged and handles it with incredible poise. Has that vulnerable moment because it's right after she opens the Christmas present, which we talked about earlier on, which again, she thinks is going to be the necklace, the ugly necklace.
Correct size box. She's seen the necklace. She puts 2 and 2 together and thinks she's getting the necklace.
And it's a Joni Mitchell.
And loves her and blah, blah, blah. And it's a Joni Mitchell.
Which is a call back to the start of when you introduced to them. She's listening to Joni Mitchell and he says something like, "You still like Joni Mitchell?" or something like that.
And then she goes off and listens to it, and that's just that wide shot of just her listening to the music.
It really is.
And then she has to go and put herself back together and take everyone off.
Yes, exactly. And you see those moments where she's clearly composing herself, and it's just like
she has to wipe away the tears, and she's
I've got
to
be strong for these kids. Yeah,
the stoicism that runs through the rest of her story is just probably how badly it's going to end. But actually, I just like I say, the magic trick of the whole bloody thing, or the Christmas miracle, the whole bloody thing, is that any of it works. Yeah.
With such reprehensible characters,
because they are when you even just start to scratch at almost any of them, apart from the 2 stand-ins or maybe Colin Firth a little bit. Most of them are fucking monsters.
Yeah,
but it makes you
there's like a weird power differential thing there with Colin Firth, because they're alone a lot. Clearly he lives alone in that house that he's writing in, and she's. It's an employer-employee relationship.
Yeah.
And so there's an argument to be made there that,
literally cleans and cooks.
Yeah, but and you don't want to take away her agency, because clearly, by the end of the movie, she's genuinely into him. But where did that start? Did it start out of duty to because she was, essentially mothering him? You can probably overanalyze this to hell.
Yeah, you definitely get. Well, I mean, we forget actually that the sympathy for Colin Firth starts because his girlfriend is cheating on him with his brother.
Oh, you're right. It does, doesn't it?
We didn't mention that, but that's where that story starts. And the brother is there actually when he goes to the house as well. When he decides to turn around, the brother is stood there in the background. If you
Oh,
look
is he
closely,
really? Okay.
pulling a weird face behind his mother or whatever.
Okay.
With like, oh hey Uncle Jamie, and the brother's there, just like, yeah, he is his brother is having an affair with his, let's say, girlfriend,
Yeah.
and that's what leads him off back to, I assume, back to France. I assume he owns that
Yeah.
house, right? So yeah. The final thought I wanted on
Mhm.
this one is I haven't seen it and it doesn't really seem to be available, but for Comic Relief a couple of years ago, they effectively did a small sequel.
Oh, did they? Okay.
And you can find little vignettes about the making of it, and you can find little clips, but I've never seen it, and it's largely unavailable.
Hmm.
Like one day I will find this thing, and I might send it back to you, and we'll do a
Yeah,
Garzard or
yeah, I
something
bet for that.
following up. But the only thing I know about it, other than who some of the folks who did come back, is that because Rickman had already died, Emma Thompson said she wouldn't come back.
Oh, okay.
So I believe that story is just left out of it
yeah,
entirely.
okay.
And obviously, it's a Comic Relief level skit. So I don't know how hard it's going to go in terms of any of it. But the fact that they did that,
Yeah.
let's say 15 years later,
Mhm.
is fascinating to me. But I believe it's called Comic Relief actually,
Okay.
and it is broadly a canon sequel. And I'm just
Interesting.
I haven't looked up what happens in it, which I'm sure I could find a write up of. But I just find it fascinating that that exists.
Yeah, it seems like I mean, I suppose given the fact that it has become a film that people uh, watch every year or
Yeah,
have a lot of fondness for, I suppose it kind of makes sense in the fact that it's part of the cultural landscape in that way. But it does seem like an odd play to do that for Comic Relief, especially considering Comic Relief generally isn't around Christmas, right?
yeah, no, I don't think it's got anything to do with
Hmm.
Christmas. I think it's very much just because Richard Curtis is quite involved in Comic Relief, and I guess they were going to do a skit like they did a Blackadder skit, I think, last year with Baldrick.
Okay.
Um, doing a pantomime. I think Baldrick did a
Hmm.
pantomime or something. I don't know. I didn't see that one either, but I remember hearing about it. Um, might not even been last year. Might have been the year before. But the fact that he's quite involved in that and he's a name and he can bring these people in and everyone's willing to give up their time, I like that they did
Yeah.
it. It's weird that it's not available anywhere. Just to even if it was on YouTube to make a bit of ad revenue or
Right.
something. But for whatever reason, I guess maybe the contracts that were signed with people, and whatever business reason you can have, there's any number of reasons it might not be available.
Yeah.
But it it doesn't annoy me, but I'm sad that I haven't seen it in a
Yeah.
way, just to know what the hell it was, even if I just see it as like, you know, uh, a fantasy thing, not connected to the film. I'm just curious to know what the choices were to update those stories or finish those stories or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I agree. It's very curious. What it kind of makes you think of is the short sequel to Totoro that was only available in the Ghibli Museum.
Good, a very good pull. Yes, I've obviously never seen that either, but one day maybe we'll see it together.
Yeah,
But one day we'll see it and we'll do a follow up
for
about it.
sure.
But do you think so? Okay, final thoughts. Do you think that Love Actually will be entering your Christmas rotation, or have I talked you out of it?
I don't know. I don't know. I really enjoyed it when I watched it last night. Um,
It does sound like I've
yeah, I
talked you
love
out of it.
it. Thinking about it more, 'cause I kind of, I deliberately tried not to analyze it in between then and now because I wanted us
Right.
to talk about it and go into it, you know, and get your take on it in particular. Um, there were definitely, I definitely thought as the movie was going on, yeah, a lot of these people are very unpleasant. So it's
Mm.
yeah. I don't know if it'll necessarily. There were moments enough where it's it would be one of those things where I wouldn't turn it off. Let's say, but I
Yeah,
don't think I'll go and seek it out like I would a Home Alone or It's a Wonderful Life.
that's very fair. I mean, I own it on
Okay.
Blu-ray, and I will just leave it on if it's
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
television. Like one way or another, every year I'm seeing at least part of it, if not the whole
Okay.
thing. I think it was last year, it might have been the year before, but it was like on at like midnight on Christmas
Oh,
Day.
really?
And I think me and Beth just sat up and watched all of it,
Okay.
until like 2 a.m. and then went to bed. Like it was just one of those things where it was just kind of like, oh, it's starting, or it was already on maybe a little bit
Yeah.
in. And it was just kind of like, yeah, let's leave it.
Just
Let's
watch it.
just,
Yeah.
this can be the nice, peaceful end to Christmas Day. And it's like I say, the miracle of Christmas is that it works,
Yeah.
that it makes you believe these people are nice people when if you do analyze it, it falls apart very quickly.
Yeah, it really does.
And that's kind of the amazing part of it. But I mean, yeah,
fascinating.
hopefully I haven't turned you off in
No,
time,
not
because
at all.
like I say,
No.
I still like it, but I also have to acknowledge the fact that it's monsters.
Yeah,
They're all monsters.
they really are. Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like these sorts of movies, people pick up on, again, going back to the Jingle All the Way discussion. I feel like people pick up on it's like cold reading in a way, and that people count the hits and not the misses, and they pick up on all the things that they like about it, but then kind of ignore some of the things that are more challenging.
Keita Nomori.
Keita Nomori, exactly, yeah. So, like, for example, one of the things that friends here have
oh yeah, tell me about popularity over there.
So
yeah,
people assumed that I had seen it, which I hadn't until last night. And someone, one of my friend Morgan did the say these things in your accent bit, and was like trying to make me do it essentially. Where they're in the bar, and she's like, "What's this called?" Bottle, yeah. And she did the table thing. She's like, "What's this called?" Table, and she's like, "Oh, it's the same." And I didn't get the reference. Like I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty much the same." And she's like, "Wait, if you Love Actually?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I've never seen it," and blew her mind that I'd never seen it. And it seems like folks around my age, it really is one of those rotation movies that they have to watch every year.
It definitely is that, and for multi-age groups and people. I mean, I got into it through Kim, who's younger than both of us. I think it was her who when we lived together, put it on and was just like, "No, you're like, just watch it." And I was just like, you know what, yeah, but also monsters. And then we probably had the first version of this discussion. And it's just, it just has become that thing for so many people. But all I can say is like the true magic of Christmas is that Love Actually works. That's all I've got. Like, that's the line, because it is just the ultimately, like, it shouldn't work. None of those stories in isolation will work.
No.
But you tell them in broad strokes, and you hit that kind of emotional manipulation, I suppose, if you want to be really harsh, that Richard Curtis is very good at, and you get that film, and you laugh along with it, and like you say, you only acknowledge the high spots, and it's just like, this is really sweet,
but it's not really, yeah.
But just the bottom line here to take away is that I like both these films.
Yeah,
quite
I do
a lot,
too.
but also making fun of things is fun.
Yes, and I think you can like the movie, particularly with Love Actually, but also with certain characters in Jingle All the Way. You can like the movie and still revile the characters' choices. How much monstrous some of them are.
That's really the bottom line here, is that it's like we've just made the Christmas Monsters podcast.
We have. That's true.
Is there anybody who's the most redeemable thing in all of this that we've just talked about?
I would probably say Emma Thompson. It's the Jilted Wives. It's Emma Thompson and Rita Wilson. Rita Wilson, yeah.
Oh, I suppose, but even by the end of it, I think she's a little bit like, ooh,
oh, that's true.
She's so like into him again,
enthralled by the plastic suit.
So weird, yeah, weird latex suit king. Monsters, actually. Merry Christmas, everyone.
And I think that's the perfect ending to that.
Yeah.